Hi, this is Tony Robbins. Listen, I want to welcome you to this program, and I want to tell you how privileged I feel to be able to spend this time with you. You know, this is my life's work. I dreamed decades ago of being able to touch millions of people's lives and just work with them and share with them so that they got real, true, measurable improvements. And I'm proud to say that now more than 50 million people from more than 100 countries utilize my work. And I'm now having a chance in this program to work with you to help you take your life to whatever the next level is, whatever you desire and deserve. So be sure to play full out during this program and be sure to stay tuned at the very end where I have some exclusive bonus content just for you. Welcome to The Edge, the power to change now. Listen, this 2-CD set is designed to be an introduction to create momentum for you. It's part of our whole Get the Edge program, 7 days to change your life, where we really focus on how to transform every area of your life that we think matters most, and you probably do too. Your body, the level of energy, the shape, the feel of life that comes through the physical well-being. Your emotions, that sense of joy, happiness, strength, the ability to snap out of those things that stop you, like frustration or stress or overwhelm, and not through some positive thinking BS, but really with real skills. Your relationships, how to enhance that sense of intimacy that you have in the most important relationships of your life, how to really strengthen them so that that part of your life brings joy and not pain as it does for, unfortunately, so many people. Your finances, how do you really create that freedom, your sense of purpose and meaning in your life, and your ability to really enjoy? How's that for a giant promise? But I'll tell you something, we really have an opportunity here to make some progress and create some initial momentum that can move you in the direction that gets you the results that you're committed to. And I want to start out by just telling you here, I'm really here to deliver for you. In the next couple CDs, I want to begin a journey with you where hopefully you become good friends, and I have the privilege to become your coach. And I want to earn that. And I really want to first, though, thank you for the opportunity and the faith to at least grab one of these CDs instead of saying, what is this silly stuff? And saying, I'm going to at least listen, and I'll judge by results. And that's all I ask of you. And I want to also start out right up front by telling you that I really believe, as silly as it may sound, we must be kindred souls, because you're listening just like I did. This is where I started way back when I was 17 years old, when I was looking for answers. I didn't have any role models. I didn't have somebody to instruct me and show me the answers. And I got tired of trial and error learning. So I started thinking, you know what? Success leaves clues. I need to find people that have already succeeded and learn what are the steps, what's the blueprint to make those results happen in my own life. And I gotta tell you something, I've never stopped doing it. I still listen and feed my mind. I'm still always reading. I'm always feeding it, because life is about growth. And if you're growing, you've got something you can give to others, and there's a sense of pride in your life, and there's nothing you face that you ever start to say, oh my God, how can I handle this? You may have your moments, but inside you know you have not only the strength, but the skill to deal with whatever shows up, and not only deal with it, but ultimately triumph. Produce the kind of results you want and get the level of joy that you want that comes from a life of true meaning. And by the way, the edge, when I talk about that, it's not the edge over other people. It's the edge in life. It's the edge within yourself. It's that mental, emotional edge. It's the skill edge. It's the edge of really unlocking what's already inside you that no one's going to give you. It's just waiting for you to tap into it. I'm talking about the life advantage, the advantage that allows you to see life and feel life from the peak, where you experience that joy and that passion, that juice for living, where your body feels that kind of energy, where you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to jump out of bed, and you don't want to go to bed at night because your life has so much that you enjoy. I want you to experience more of that. I'm sure you have some of that, or if you don't feel it right now, I can promise you, you will. And I can make that promise not through hyperbole, but I can make the promise because two things are true. Number one, I've done this with 3 million people, and there's nothing you've gone through that I haven't seen. And I can show you how to make the shift. Not because I'm so smart, but because I have to be an idiot at this stage not to see that there are patterns in human behavior. There are certain things that if you do them, you're going to feel extraordinary. And if you do other things, you're going to be depressed and frustrated and overwhelmed. And all you have to do is see those patterns, but most of us don't have that privilege because we're busy spending our life, making a living. We start out really young. We have all these ideas and dreams and this excitement for our life, and gradually that wanes, doesn't it? Because after a while, you get disappointed, you have some failures, quote unquote, some frustrations. People tell you, hey, you're a bit naive to think this stuff could work out. Or lower your expectations. And the minute you do that, you've lost your life. What you have now is life as a job. Life is something that we go out and we do every day so we can start over and do it again, instead of finding that juice that God gave us, that unique expression of ourselves that'll touch other people and make us feel like this life has a greater meaning than just the day-to-day stuff. So if you're listening to me right now, you're one of the few who do. You're not one of those people who settle. I know you can succeed at this because you made it through your pessimism, skepticism, stuff that really kills our faith. People tell me all the time, oh, I'm skeptical about this kind of stuff. I'm pessimistic. I say, no, you're gutless. You're scared. Tell the truth. You're afraid to get your hopes up. I got it. I've been there too. You're afraid to get excited about something and then have it not work, because so often that happens. But certain things work. There are laws of life. If you live them, you'll get results. If you sow, you'll reap. And the reason they work is because they've been modeled from people that have already made it happen. Step-by-step things you do to be able to deal with real-life challenges and turn them around now. Step-by-step things you do to make sure you can enjoy the process while you're dealing with those inevitable challenges that we all have in our lives. Every journey, and this is a journey, I promise you, a great journey you've begun, but every journey begins with that first step. The old adage they say, it's overused, but it's true. And the first step is listening. So if you got faith and you got the ability to take action, you have the ability to change anything in your life. And I don't know where you are right now. I don't know if you're in the most challenged time of your life or if you're in the victory period. But wherever you are, it can change with two things: consistent focus and consistent action. And I can promise you, I don't care how big the challenge is, you can turn it around. At this stage of my life, I'm the guy that gets the call when the fire starts. When all of a sudden the golfer had a 6-stroke advantage and he ended up losing by 4 strokes on national television. You don't want to get back up and go through that again. Or I get the call when a president is under fire and there's an impeachment hearing, somebody wants some strategy or conversation, or a couple is in a position where they're trying to figure out what to do because their son or daughter is suicidal. Or on the positive side, rock and roll group says, you know what, we're feeling burnt out, we're succeeding, we're doing our best, but we're not enjoying it. You got the tools here to help us be fulfilled, step up and deliver, and it's a blast. Or I get people stop me every day to tell me these great stories of how they changed their body or their relationships or their finances, or they started a company. Or sometimes I get the call just to celebrate. I just received a call a few days ago from a man who called me up and said, listen, I've been using your stuff for years. I've gone to all your seminars, listened to all your tapes. I was struggling like crazy. And in 7 years, I built this company. I just sold it for $120 million. I'd like you to come on my jet and celebrate with me. I thought, that's a nice call, right? But I've had so many experiences in so many different countries with so many different kinds of people. I've dealt with the kids in the South Bronx addicted to cocaine, and I've dealt with the top CEOs in Hollywood addicted to cocaine. People's challenges are the same no matter where you go in the world, whether it's Southeast London, Tasmania, or California. You're going to see that human beings are the same. We have different beliefs, we have different rituals, but we have some of the same challenges, and the solutions that work for human beings are the same worldwide. Now, initially, I took all the things I've learned from all the people I've worked with, and obviously, while I was quote-unquote supposedly teaching them, I was learning from them. I was applying it to myself, and I made huge changes in my body and my emotions and my relationships and my finances. But you know what? Whenever you make a change and you make things better, you feel great for a while, and then pretty soon there's another gap. There's a gap between where you are and where you want to be. If you're healthy, only people that are lying say, oh yeah, everything's perfect. How long does it stay like that? Because we always raise our standards. Because one of the needs we have as human beings is to grow. If you don't grow, you die. It's not about your body. It's not about the money. It's not about the weight. It's about discovering what you're really capable of and experiencing that feeling of aliveness. And you can't have that unless you realize there's a gap. So if things are going really great in your business, usually, your kids are not getting enough attention and you feel bad about it. Oh, what do? You got to handle it, right? Or if things are great with your kids, you're not taking any time for your own body. Or you're taking time for your body and you don't have time with your spouse. It's the nature of a human being that whatever we focus on, we'll tend to get more of. If you focus on problems, you'll get more of them. If you focus on how to make something better, it'll get better if you really act on that focus. But we don't usually have a systematic way of looking at each of the areas of life that are most important. And in fact, most of us focus on things that aren't important and we make them too important. I really believe that people in life are usually stressed simply because they're focusing on things and giving enormous energy to things that don't really matter that much. We focus on to get all upset. And have you ever done that? I sure have myself. So upset about something, all the emotion. And you know what? 6 months from now, you don't even remember it. Maybe even 6 days from now, sometimes an hour from now. but you don't take the time to focus on the things that matter, like your body or your relationship, or, what's happening with your kids, or your connection with God, or, hey, what do I really want from my life, instead of keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again and trying to do it more and harder, even though you're not fulfilled. See, most people are afraid to look at what's missing. But you know what? The moment you can figure out what's missing, it won't be missing anymore, because you can get a system, you can start to focus on it, you can start to move towards it, and you can achieve anything you put the focus and action into. Anything anybody else has ever made happen, you have the same resources, you have the same nervous system. Some of us are bigger or stronger, some of us have more background in one thing, greater education. But you know what? Those limits are not the real limits. The limits are the limits of our psychology, our mindset, our beliefs, and the feelings we have about them. If you believe that this is it, this is the best life's going to get, you're right. And if you believe, you know what, I don't care how bad it's been, I don't care how many times I've tried, this doesn't work, this is going to do it, and I'm going to take action every day until I find the way, you will. And all you have to do is look around in life and see the examples of that everywhere. It's not people's background that makes them successful. It's their psychology. It's their mindset. It's, do they have a way of consistently focusing on something, obsessing about something that's so important to them, and are they willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen versus talk about it? See, everybody's got a story about why they can't have what they want. And I'm here to tell you, the only thing that stops us, and I'm not telling you, I've done this so many times, so I'm not pointing the finger, trust me. But the only thing that ever stops us from getting what we really want is the story we have about why we can't have it. And we all come up with those stories. So part of what we want to do is get rid of the stories, come up with the plans that are proven because they're based on people that have already succeeded at the highest levels, and then let you tweak it to your own style. You don't have to be crazy and insane like me. I know at times I want to talk too fast and I might be a little obnoxious. I don't mean to be. I really want to serve. But I got to do anything I can to get through to you because I really know what's possible. If you're at the top, you're not there. There's another level. And you're not going to be happy till you find it. Maybe it's a level of joy. You're the top of the money, or you're the top of your career, or you're the chairman of the company, but there's some new adventure awaiting you. And unless you keep finding it, life doesn't feel like life. It feels like a job. It feels like something you got to do. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you got to do versus you get to do. Life is a get to. And we so often convince ourselves it's a got to, and we wonder why we're not so happy. I mean, we are constantly responding to the demands of the environment and rarely taking the time to decide what we really want. And whenever you react to stimulus, you're not in control. And when you're not in control, you're not going to stay happy. Because listen, a measure of your self-esteem comes down to one simple thing. Do you feel like you control events, or events are controlling you? And I'll tell you what, it's so easy to get sucked in. And I've done it myself, and I've done it even when I've known these tools. I mean, this is not something you figure out one time and then all of a sudden it's all perfect. It's like muscle. You don't get muscle by going to the gym once. You develop a system of working out on a regular basis, and after a while, working out is fun. I mean, you look forward to it. It's your time. If there's anything missing in our lives, it's time with ourselves, thinking about not problems, but what we're grateful for, thinking about what we want, creating the plan to make it happen, creating the juice of our lives, stopping and taking in what already is great, because you can't build on failure, you can only build on success. But if you do that once in a while you feel pretty good. If you got a system for doing it, that's what'll change your life. So part of what triggered me to do this is years ago, I said, I got to have my hour of power. I got to have at least 15 minutes for fulfillment. I got to have that short time, the first time in the morning, to set myself up for success, because rarely does a great idea interrupt you. Rarely does beauty just suddenly surround you and engulf you. You have to stop and notice and appreciate it. You got to seek it out. You got to schedule it. Everybody talks about things, and I tell people when they plan their life, I said, talk's cheap. Talk about it, it's a dream. When you start to envision things, it gets exciting. When you start to get a plan, it's possible. But when you schedule it, it's real. So part of the power of this Get the Edge program, and I know really what you've got here is, the first 2 CDs, the edge, so to speak, because we wanted to create an introduction for you. So many people watch me on television and they go, oh yeah, there's that guy with the big teeth again. Oh yeah, trying to sell me something. And they don't know what the value is in their life of setting up a simple process of really doing 3 things. Getting yourself to focus and clarify exactly what you want. As simplistic as that sounds, wherever focus goes, energy flows. And what you're going to learn in this process, even in these first 2 CDs, is how to set yourself up so that your mind, your emotions are aligned. So part of what I want to do and part of what will make this successful for you is just starting to give yourself this commitment of a little time to yourself. The second thing we're going to do is give you some tools. And what Get the Edge as a whole is about is the tools for each area of your life, your body. And these aren't tools that I just made up. They're the things I've modeled from the most successful people in the world. I said to myself, okay, if I want to transform my body as an example, and I want a vision of that, what is that? I used to work out like crazy and I got all bulked up and I thought I was just so cool, but I couldn't walk. I would be on stage and I'd be in pain. I'd bend over and hurt my back. It was silly. So gradually I got more clear and I said, what I really want is energy. Energy is the force of life. If you got energy, you're going to have a passionate relationship because there's the energy for it. Otherwise, if you're tired, I don't care how much you know about relationships or how much you love your partner, you're just not going to have it. You're going to go, honey, not tonight. So much of our life is tied to that. You're not going to start a new business or be able to take care of your kids or just enjoy your life with all the juice if that energy isn't there. So I said, okay, how am I going to do this? Once you get clear on what you want, you got to figure out what's a role model. Who's got the tools to get me there quicker? My whole thing is, how do you compress decades into days? How do I save the time and not reinvent the wheel like some idiot? That's what I used to do. I was dumb. But I said, okay, who is the most energized athlete in the world who's not a professional? That's not their full-time job. They're not paid for this. So it has to be something that's really fed them. And they weren't, let's say, necessarily a great athlete in school. Somebody who became strong in terms of their capacity, in terms of their endurance. Because endurance is a very powerful part of our lives. Life is not a sprint. Sometimes you have to sprint, but life's more like a marathon. And energy is the secret. So I kept doing research and I found this man named Stu Middleman, this guy that ran 1,000 miles in 11 days. If you can imagine, he ran 85 miles a day for 11 consecutive days, and he was stronger at the end than the beginning. Now, he did this around, 30 years old, if I remember, but here's what's amazing about him. You go, he's a freak of nature. How does this relate to me? Here's how. If you understand what he learned, is he was not a runner. He trained his body to burn fat. Most of us burn sugar, so what do? Oh yeah, we jump in there, and sugar burning's kind of like lighter fluid. You go in there and bam, you got a burst of energy from what you've eaten, but bam, within a short time, your blood sugar's dropping and the energy's gone. Lighter fluid, bam, big explosion of energy and it's gone. What burning fat, which is what you can train your body to do, does is it makes you burn like coals. You just keep going and going and going and going. If you've met anybody, if you've gotten introduced to this because you know someone who's been to one of my live seminars, they'll tell you we do a weekend where people normally would not sit for 3 hours for a movie. A 3.5-hour concert is considered a long concert. And we've got people that are incredibly sophisticated, both in development, psychologically, intelligence levels, economics. We got people from 45 countries that'll be in a seminar translating for 3 languages simultaneously. And we'll be in a weekend that might last 40 hours and nobody wants to leave the room. And I'm not exaggerating. And it's because there's an energy. There's an energy to life. So what I've done in Get the Edge is I've taken each of these individual areas and say, what is it that these people do? And by the way, if you say, well, that's really wonderful, he did that. If you think you're at a different stage of life and you don't have that energy, let me tell you what you learn and Get the Edge in that area. He did it again at 49 years old. He decided to run from San Diego to New York City and break his own record, 3,000 miles, 52 miles a day. That's 2 marathons a day for 57 consecutive days. 2 marathons a day for 57 days. Imagine that. Now, I'm the kind of guy, I can't go to sleep at night, so I figure out how the heck he did that. Instead of going, well, he's a freak of nature, or he's unbelievable. When I realized this guy wasn't even a runner, and I found out that the way he learned this was by going to Central America and studying this group of Indians that once a year the tribe runs 76 miles. Like everybody in the tribe does this run as part of this celebration. He thought they were crazy and went down to study the social psychology of this, but also being an expert in physiology, he figured out they trained their bodies to burn fat. So I'm telling you this because Get the Edge is about the tools also. What are the tools that make a relationship work? What are the tools that make you go from where you are to where you want to be financially? And I'm coming into my 3rd decade shortly of studying human beings, of being that hunter of human excellence. So that's where we're going. But these first 2 CDs are the process that makes this all possible. First, we got to get you clear. We got to get you focused. We got to give you a process where you start to create what you want. Clarity is power. Second, I'm gonna give you a couple of tools here right away to shift what makes everything work, which is your emotions, right? Think about it. If you've got all this energy, but you're depressed, I don't care about your body. It's going to go down. Now, they do interact with one another, I'm sure you realize. If you're feeling physically bad, it's easy to feel emotionally bad and vice versa. But my view is it's hard to separate these two. So I'm going to walk you through in these first 2 CDs how to change that energy immediately, not with some false pump up, but what really works by learning how to change your focus, what we call your physiology, your body, and how you use language to change what things mean to you. In other words, meaning creates emotion. Is this the end or the beginning right now? That's a decision you make consciously or unconsciously, and it completely changes how you feel, which changes what you do in your life. Is God punishing you with this? Or is God rewarding you? Or is God challenging you? Or what's your belief? Is there such a force in your life? Those belief systems create meanings and emotions, and I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here just to share with you tools so you can elicit what works for you to get the results you want. That's one thing I want to emphasize too. This process, this edge in life, is knowing what it is you really clearly want, having strong enough reasons to make that happen. That's part of clarity. And really, that pillar of clarity is also being honest with yourself about where you are. And then the second part is getting the tools to make it happen, getting, a map, someone who's already done it to show you how they did it in the shortest period of time so you can do this conveniently in your normal life. If you want to do it through total immersion, you can come to a seminar, but right now, I want to make sure you get results wherever you are, while you're driving in your car, while you're working out. I call it net time, no extra time. That's how you can make this thing happen. And then the third tool is if you know exactly what you want, and you've got a ritual to lock in the right emotions, and you've got the tools to shift yourself from being overwhelmed or frustrated or stressed out, or not knowing where to start, to clarity, to determination. And it isn't some fake stuff, it's coming from inside you because you are doing it, it's a habit in you. Then the only thing that can keep you from following through is really unlocking any conflicts, really kind of aligning yourself, redirecting yourself. If you know what you want and you know how to do it and you're not doing it, then there's some internal conflict and we got to unlock that. So what Get the Edge, the entire 7 days are about, is tackling all this. And I call it 7 days, but in truth, I always give you a week of personal power too. That's the most successful program I did of all times, where I started. And so I give that at no extra charge, and I do it because once you get a week of momentum, you're going to want to do another week. And again, you can do this one a day. You can do this once a week if you want to, but momentum has power. So I'm going to encourage you afterwards here. You'll see I won't hold anything back. This is not just some sales pitch for you. I just wanted to give you a bite-sized experience, but I also want to tell you that if you want to keep going with the momentum, please call us and we'll give you some great deal and credit for being a part of this first 2 CDs. But if I never see you again, these next 2 CDs, I'm going to focus on creating some rituals, some distinctions, some tools, and some clarity that'll move you forward regardless. I'm not here to create a dependency. I'm not here to be, as I say, anybody's guru. Certainly not for you. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. But I can share with you the best I've learned in nearly 3 decades of what gets results and what gets fulfillment. And that's really the promise of this. I think there's 2 skills in life, master skills. One is the science of achievement. That is, how do you turn your vision into reality? How do you take what you've been talking about and make it real? And the other one is the art of fulfillment. And notice I say science of achievement because things like how to produce a transformation in your body, your shape, your energy, there are laws of the body. There are laws of health. Everybody knows that. Everybody has different opinions about style and approaches. There's many ways to get to the result. But there's certain laws, if you violate them, you're going to have pain. Life doesn't care what you believe. You can say, I don't believe in gravity, but you step off the cliff, you're going to pay the price. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is pain. Ignorance will cost you. And sometimes it's just like talking to Stu Middleman, learning 1 or 2 little things that nobody else knows. It's such a little shift, like a little 10-degree shift. And imagine you're heading one direction, you make this little tiny 10-degree shift. But if you keep following that new direction for a day, for a week, for a month, over 6 months, you end up with a totally different destiny, a different destination than where you were headed. Little changes can change everything. Most people never get started because they're overwhelmed. So part of what Get the Edge is about, and the Edge, this program, is some little distinctions that you can use to get immediate results. And you'll be able to test this right now with our Hour of Power and with this set of steps I'm going to show you on how to make a change in an area maybe where it's really been difficult for you, as well as, again, how to change the emotion. Because, what is life but emotion? If you can achieve every goal, if you understand the laws of finance, it doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter what your color, what your background, what your gender. If you understand the laws and you apply them, you're going to have abundance in your life financially. I've done these things. I'm not talking to you as some guy that's learned something from books. I've had the privilege of making $400 million in a day, literally, when I took a company public. I've had the privilege also of losing several $100 million in the stock market, changed at times. I built 14 companies, and I did all this with no background. It wasn't my expertise. I just had visions of things I wanted to do for people, and I try to do it better than anybody else in the world. And when you add that much value, you learn ways to grow, but there are lots of distinctions along the way. And this program, The Edge, is really designed to give you the start on that journey, to begin the momentum, to move you in the direction of what matters for you. But I say the science of achievement, that's wonderful. The art of fulfillment, though, is required. And the reason I say that is, have you ever had the horrific experience of actually achieving your goal and then saying, is this all there is? It's one of the worst moments in a person's life, because failing to achieve your goal, at least, you may be frustrated, but it's still possible. When you actually achieve your goal and then it doesn't have the same meaning, it doesn't juice you, it doesn't make you feel alive, that's depressing for people. And the reason is most of us are never taught on how to have fulfillment. It is an art. And the reason I say art is it's not absolute in its rules. Art is unique and different as people. When I work with people, I tell people, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to tell you what you should get or what you should want. I'm here to help you focus and find what your passion is. What is your definition of an extraordinary life? What's life on your terms? And what's life on your terms today? Not what you thought it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, not someone else's script. Yours today. What will really fill you up? What would excite you? See, when you tap into that, life has got meaning. And I think meaning comes from two things. Is this moment that we're having right now, this moment I'm talking to you, I'm trying to step into your heart and your mind and try to give you a sense from mine of what I've experienced and try to get a sense of what maybe is important to you. But does this moment of conversation have any meaning? Is it a waste of time? Is it worthwhile? What moments are extraordinary? I would say any moment you appreciate. Think about it. And if you've got $1 billion and the primary emotion of your life is frustration and anger, then your life is frustrating and angry. It doesn't matter how much money you got. If you have a family where everybody loves you, and you have somebody that adores you, but you sit around feeling depressed all the time or worried, then your life is depression and worry. It's not love. We are the emotions that we make habitual. We are the emotions that we live consistently in life. That's what dominates us. So in this first CD, getting you going here, in this first audio introduction, if you will, one of the things I really want to do is get you associated that emotions don't just happen to you, that you do them. And when you start to understand this, you start to learn how you can not only shift your ability to achieve, but your ability to enjoy. And I think that enjoyment, that art of fulfillment, is learning how to appreciate things, really enjoy things to the fullest. Many of us feel guilty if we do that. And also, how to make sure we're contributing in a way that gives us a sense of meaning. Because no matter how much you achieve within yourself, meaning, a life that has deep value, comes because we feel like, hey, I didn't just get up and enjoy and succeed and celebrate, but somehow I helped to pay it forward. That I did something, I did something for someone I love, or maybe for someone I don't even know I did something loving. Those little things play a huge role. So I'm not trying to give you the whole enchilada in this moment, but I do want to give you a sense of where we're going. So I'm hoping that I will, as a result of these couple CDs, really be able to help you, help yourself take things to the next level in the first stages of that. Get those fundamental understandings, some skills that really work for you, make those shifts, and set up a process so that you ongoingly get results. And then at the end of this, again, if you choose to, please call our company and give me the privilege of having an opportunity to coach you. Everything I do, by the way, we give a money-back guarantee on. So if you go to one of those programs, or if you decide to have a personal coach, or you decide to do the rest of this program and you don't think it's worthwhile, you can look at our guarantee there and you can get all your money back based upon the guarantee for that particular product. But all of it is really just about your satisfaction. So I'm here to serve you, and I hope that this is the beginning of a really beautiful journey and where we can make a difference. In this first Edge experience, I hope will begin that momentum for you. See, all change happens in a minute. You got to remember the power of a minute. In 1 minute, you could change everything in your life. In 1 minute, you can say, never again. Never. As the Jewish people have said in their country. They set a standard there, and they said, we will never go through a Holocaust again. It will never occur again. When a human being gets that point of never again, it takes a minute. In a minute, you can also do some other things. In a minute, you can look somebody in the eyes like you've never looked at them before. In a minute, you can hug somebody like you've never hugged them before. In a minute, you can say the words, I love you, and mean it at a level you've never meant it before. In a minute, you can say, I quit, or let's begin, or it's over, or I do. Think of the minutes of your life that have changed who you are. And I got to promise you, we got a lot of them in here. Minutes, there's moments right at the point you think, this guy's insane, and I'm going to turn this off. You stay there a little bit. I can just tell you because I've done it for years. It's different for somebody else. One phrase will wake something up inside you. I'm not going to give you anything. It's all inside you. But when it wakes up, baby, it is time to move, and I don't have to tell you that. It'll just happen. You'll suddenly say, this is it, no more, and it's kind of like that Pearl Harbor movie when, you see them come diving down and the admiral should be celebrating and they say, Admiral, we've got this great victory. And he says, oh, I fear we've awakened a sleeping giant. And inside of each of us is that giant. And so today we're going to establish a habit that if you make it a part of your life, I promise you, I guarantee you beyond a shadow of a doubt, you will be able to experience dreams that you never thought were possible. Joy that seemed like it was unsustainable, and you'll sustain it. A connection with people like you never thought was possible. Not because I'm so smart, because these are laws, and I've stolen all this by modeling people that are successful, and I've used it, and it works for me too, and it'll work for you. But also, then we're going to begin the process of actually figuring out anything in your life that you want to change, and you haven't changed it, and we're going to take you through a 7-step process and do it. That's tomorrow. Once you go through those 7 steps, the changes will have begun. I mean, there are going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there are going to be problems. Those things don't go away. You just get better quality problems, that's all. I mean, a lot of people in life think they're going to be happy someday. They're going to have this extraordinary life when they have no problems. Well, if you had no problems, you'd probably be dead. Problems are a sign of life. What you want to do is use them to make yourself more. This is not a program that's going to eliminate all problems. It'll help you get rid of your current list so you can create a better list that makes you grow to the next level. That's what life is. So if problems don't go away, you better have a deeper purpose for your life. So here's what this is about today. You are going to start a process, if you're willing to, of taking time for yourself, of taking the most scarce resource you got, time, and giving it to you. And not just thinking about problems, but going through a very simple system that'll line you up for success. Because if problems aren't going to go away, how am I ever going to have a great life? Well, the answer to that is to realize that problems and happiness have no linkage whatsoever. I learned this because all of a sudden I felt like I had all these problems. And in the midst of problems, because I made changes, and by the way, anytime you make some changes, you're going to have some problems because people aren't going to agree with it, or they're not going to like it, or they're going to judge it and going to say, why did you do that? Or I don't like it. Change always creates problems. As you have problems, you create solutions, which, by the way, are more changes. And when you create more changes, what does that do? It creates more problems. So problems are here to stay. In fact, they won't be problems for you. They'll be challenges. And we love a challenge, don't we? Nobody wants a problem, but we love a challenge. I mean, why do we watch sports? 2 people take on a challenge to see what they can do. Why do you start a new business? What is it that makes you attracted to someone and saying, my gosh, can I connect with them? Can I get through to this person? Can I get this idea across? It's challenge. Challenge is necessary for growth, and growth is life. So it's a cool system. So let's get right to the point here. If you're going to have an extraordinary life, that life where you are juiced, then all that means is you're going to have a life where the primary emotions of your life are the ones you want. See, it doesn't mean that life works out every way you want. Sometimes it rains on your parade. Sometimes the events of your life you can't control, but you can control what it means to you. And when you control what it means to you, you have the ultimate power of your life. You have the edge, the ultimate advantage. See, I'll give you an example. Did you see that movie that won the Academy Award, Life is Beautiful? It's a story of a man who has an extraordinary life. Not because he has more money than anybody else, not because he's in a situation where everything is easy, but because he's alive. He has this joy about him. And by the way, if you've actually ever met Roberto Benigni, the man who plays this character, you know that he lives this way day to day. He was authoring this thing from himself. He's such a joyous guy. And when he won the Academy Award, you never saw so much emotion. He was like a little boy, and everybody loved it because nobody else has the guts to be that way. Or they've forgotten what it feels like to just feel, to be alive. What makes him extraordinary? An extraordinary psychology, an extraordinary mindset, an extraordinary way of looking at the world. And in the movie, the man has that, doesn't he? And who does it affect? Everyone. Everyone within the realm of his influence. His wife feels like the most cherished person on earth, and so does he. Because when you give that kind of love and that kind of joy, people give it back. It's infectious. His son seems so happy, and they're in the middle of the Nazis taking over their country, and if you know the story, I won't run it, you know that they get picked up. And there's such a connection amongst the family that the wife is not being sent away, and she gets on the train with them. And there in the middle of this camp, this man with his extraordinary psychology figures a way of looking at the situation for his son, presenting it so that his son sees it as a game. Isn't life a game anyway? Instead of this horrible situation. And because he has that perspective, in the end, his family survives. See, if you want your family to survive, if you want them to succeed, if you want them to have joy, if you want your kids to have a lasting love, if you want to be able to give gifts in your life and not just take care of yourself, then you got to have an extraordinary psychology within yourself. It's not where you live physically, it's where you live internally. There are two worlds, the inside world and the outside world. We can't totally control the outside one, but we have absolute control in the inside one. But you know what? Most of us are too busy to take any time to check out and see how it's going on in here. Or we just accept it as this is the status quo. This is who I am. This is my life. Or I'll get to it later. Mañana. I got to handle this first. Something else that's not so important. I want to invite you, my friend, to take the time to say, I'm going to have every day an hour of power. Every day I'm going to have at least 30 minutes to thrive. Or 15 minutes to be fulfilled, for God's sakes, where I'm going to take those 15 minutes and I'm going to focus on everything I'm grateful for. I mean, if we're going to have a life, we got to have time. And the time has to have some specific things we do, and one of those is gratitude. If you want to know what's the quality of your life, how much time do you spend in gratitude? How much time are you grateful and appreciative to the point that emotion wells up in you? I'm feeling it now. I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful to have the privilege to serve you right now. So if you can get to that state, everything changes. I'll give you an example. If you think about being fearful, when you're fearful, you're not grateful. If you want to get rid of fear, which everybody has, and people say, oh, I'm not fearful, I'm stressed. Or if you have in places like LA or New York, they're achievers. They can't even be stressed there. They have angst. You know, it's a higher level of more sophisticated levels of stress. But you know what? If you follow the trail of stress, it brings you to fear. And everybody's got fears. Fear they're not enough, fear that it won't work out, fear they won't be loved. Everybody's got that at some level unconsciously. We're human. So you can put the fear aside when you're grateful. I don't just mean intellectually, yeah, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. I mean stopping, thinking, seeing, and feeling. So I'm going to walk you through a system that includes gratitude. Every day of our life, we got to have a vision. Every day of our life, we got to have something that excites us. When people tell me, oh, I'm bored, I'm tired, that thing is boring. No, you're boring because you don't have something that excites you in your life. You haven't come up with a vision. You haven't come something to move towards. We all need something that's going to make us use more of who we are, our courage, our passion, our joy, face our fears, build our emotional muscles. But you don't build emotional muscles when you do the same thing day after day after day. What you get is a life that's unfulfilling. So we've got to have a vision. So you have a compelling future, that thing that makes you want to get up early. There's a reason. You got to have a reason. And, I have friends that have sold their companies. One guy sold his company and made almost $1 billion in cash, about 800 million plus. And, he was so excited for about 2 months, maybe 3. But you know what? After that, there's only so much time you want to sit on the beach by yourself because everybody else is working, and doing something and being productive. There's only so many cocktails you can take. There's only so many, movies you can watch. There's a limit to it. What he needed was a new vision. Anytime you achieve a goal, as you get close to it, you better set up the next one real quick because otherwise it's kind of like postpartum. You were looking forward to that baby and now you got him, And sometimes in the middle of the night, you're going, what did I do here? Have you ever had that experience? I got 4 kids. I can relate. I hope you can. But you know what? You also have the experience on the other side of it. It's so wonderful. It's kind of like, the guys that went to the moon for the first time, the first astronauts. They worked their whole life. They achieved this goal. They walked on the moon. Then they came back. There was a ticker tape parade. They were heroes. They shook the president's hand. Now what? What do you do now that you walked on the moon? Well, maybe you got to find how to get adventure not out of a moon flight, but adventure out of a smile. Maybe you got to have a vision for what your life's about now. Without a vision, people perish. And you got to have a daily vision that'll excite you. Otherwise, life becomes mundane. And there's nothing worse than an okay life. I told you, you're not going to have that when we're done here. I promise you, if you get this little habit, you won't have to settle for a mundane life. What people are going to go is, what happened to you? Because there's an excitement in creation. There's not a lot of excitement in maintenance. You have to maintain your body. You got to maintain things, but creating things, that's what God created us for. Gave us the gift to make choices that could create new things, businesses, ideas, families, friends, a garden. And it's available to every one of us. But if you don't got a vision each day, then the day is not going to have much juice, is it? So every day there's got to be a little time for vision, right? Time for gratitude, time for vision. Every day you got to move. Got to move. Got to move. I'll tell you why most people are unhappy. They don't move. Look at our lives today. Most people live in a box, don't they? And then what do? They get up in the morning, have a box cereal breakfast, right? And then they get in their box and they drive. And sure enough, they drive to their box office. They go up a box elevator. They type on a box. They talk on a box. They have a box lunch. They drive their box home. They turn on a box to be entertained. And maybe they just really go for the variety and have a cylinder to try and change their state. Listen, life has got to be about movement. When you move, you're alive. Emotion comes from motion. The more you move, the more you feel. Motion in your voice. For me to have this voice change, I'm changing the way I move. You saw me right now, you think I'm a maniac because I'm moving different ways, but that's how you feel. And by the way, the less you move, the less you feel, the less alive you are. If you're totally rigid, totally inflexible, no movement, this is known as death, right? So if you have emotionally, you're stuck, move. So every day you got to move. Now, that can be a simple, gentle form of exercise, but it's something that's got to happen. And by the way, if you want a great relationship with anybody, what do you got to have? Some time with them, don't you? How about you? How about you? And not only do you have to have time with them, but maybe have a conversation with them. And most of us got conversations in our head, but we're not directing them. So we're going to show you each day how to have a conversation that you direct, a way of directing your mind, of shaping your mind, of conditioning your mind. It's kind of like going to the gym and just getting in the best shape of your life, but it's the best mental, emotional, spiritual, physical shape. And you don't need me to do it. I don't have to follow you around the rest of your life. This is going to be something you're going to do for yourself. If you want to visit with me again, great. Or come see me in a seminar, I'd love to meet you. But you don't need me. I'm not here to create dependency. I'm here to remind you what you know is true, just to create some habits that will create the result you want. So, how does it work? Well, let's do this first. It's time for you to make some discoveries. The quality of your life is the quality of the consistent emotions you experience. I'll say that again. How you feel is your life. What are the feelings you have on a consistent basis? So I'm going to ask you, just take a moment. You can do it in a journal. You can do it on a piece of paper. You don't make it rules-driven. Just do it. Don't just do it in your head. I want you to write down all the emotions you experience in an average week. And on one side, write all the good ones. The other side, all the bad ones. Now, when I say bad ones, there really are no bad emotions, but the ones that are painful and you don't like. So all I want you to do is write them down. And when you write them down, try not to edit them. Don't try and say, well, just do it this way. If you experience this emotion on a consistent basis, doesn't mean every day, but at least once a week, write it down. The ones you consistently feel, not the one once in a while you feel this feeling, because what this is going to tell us is where you're really living right now. This doesn't tell me your income. I don't care. But I care about what you're passionate about. I care about what hurts you. I care about what you love. I care about what moves you. And you do too. And you don't even have to tell me the what's. Let's just figure out the feelings first. So please take a moment right now, because now we're going to begin to stop talking and we're going to start the process of doing. First step here is let's figure out where you are. Write down now, on one side, all the emotions you consistently feel in a week that are positive. On the other side, all negative. So stop the CD now and get yourself to this right now. Go ahead. Are you still listening? I'm not going to continue until you do this. Come on here. You got to get the right. Don't just listen. Okay, if you're in your car and you say you can't do it, then do it in your head at least. Or pull the car over. You're worth figuring out where you are. Cars are going to go by. You're going to drive the rest of your life. You're still going to get there. It'll take 3 minutes. Come on, be one of the few who do. Pull over. That's it. Pull over right now. Sit down and write this out just for a second. I promise you it'll be worth it. Go ahead and do it. Do it right now. So now you have some emotions that you really want. How do you create them? And you have some emotions you don't want. How do you get rid of them? Well, what if I told you you literally could change how you feel in an instant? Well, you know this is true from your past experience at times, right? There are times, like we said earlier, where you're totally upset and then something got your attention and now you're laughing. You know, people can be literally at a funeral and they're in a terrible place and all of a sudden something cracks them up. I mean, it's pretty rare, but it has happened. People can be in a place where they're in the worst situation and somehow they find all their determination. How to do that specifically is what I want to show you real quickly now. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of it, but I'll give it to you in 3 parts. 3 things you need to feel anything. These are the reasons why you feel anything. In other words, if you feel sad or upset or frustrated or depressed, there's only 3 reasons. And if you change any one of these 3, you're going to change how you feel. And if you change all 3, you'll change how you feel completely. If you're feeling happy, if you're feeling excited, if you're feeling euphoric, if you're on a roll and you want to know why you feel that way, yeah, maybe great things are happening in your life, but there's a reason why you feel that way in this moment. Sometimes you have great things happen in your life and you still don't feel great. So how do you do that? There's 3 reasons. 3 things have to be in place for you to feel great. I call these 3 reasons the Triad because there are 3 patterns that if you do these 3 patterns in your body in a certain way, you'll get a certain result, and it's like a recipe. You do one recipe, you get one result. You do another one, you get a different result. You get one kind of cake or another. So let's give you an example. I have a seminar I do that's the initial seminar most people go to. It's a chance in a weekend to revolutionize your whole life, not just change things or make it a little better, but to really step up and say, I'm going to transform it. I don't care if it's my body, my emotions, a fear, my job. It's time to do it. And we put people in an environment for 3 days of total immersion that is a blast, and people come out transformed. That process, though, very often, one of the first things I'll do is I'll ask people, what do you really want? I'll take people in the audience. We got 1,500, 2,000 people in that type of program usually, and they'll say, oh, well, I want to make, $1 million. I want to make $1 billion. I want to help my kids get through school. I want to have more confidence. I want to lose 57 pounds. I say, okay, great. Why do you want these things? If you lost the 57 pounds, if you made the $1 billion, what are you going to get? And sooner or later they'd say, well, if I change the world, it'll make a difference. And I'll say, yeah, but what will that give you? And eventually say, well, it'll make me feel good, like my life had meaning. Or they'll say, if I lost 47 pounds, I'd feel more sexy or I'd feel more energetic. Or they'd say, if I made this money, I'd feel freedom or power or secure. Whatever it is you want, you only want it because you think it's going to give you a feeling. And the truth of the matter is you can have that feeling right now if you just change these 3 patterns I'm going to tell you about. So the first pattern that determines how you feel is not the event, but what you do with your body in this moment. Right now, you're feeling, whatever you're feeling right now as you're listening to me, is related first to how you're using your body. If you're slumped over, if you've not been using it, if you're tired, you probably feel different than if you're listening to me walking right now as an example. Now, I'll give you a more specific example. If I were to tell you that there was a depressed person behind curtain number 1 over here, and for a $100,000 donation to your favorite charity, if you could describe them physically without seeing them, I bet you could do it, couldn't you? What's their posture like? Say it or think it at least. You can say it. No one's going to hear it. You're probably in the car. You're walking. People talk on phones all the time. They don't know what's going on. Speak to me. Seriously. What's their body like? First, their posture's probably what? Slumped. Where are their eyes? Down. Where's their head? Down. What's their breathing like? Full or shallow? Of course it's shallow. Their facial expression, up and tight or slack? You know it's slack. Now, how come you know all these things without me telling you? Because you've practiced this stuff before, haven't you? We all have if we've ever experienced this. Now, if you do this with your body, I don't care who we are. If you do these things to your body, you're going to feel lousy. You're going to feel depressed. Now, if you change the way you use your body, if you put your shoulders back, if you breathe, if you use your voice in a different way, if you move or gesture at a different tempo, it's hard to feel depressed in that way. In fact, there was a research study that was done early in my career that was done at UC Berkeley. And they did something that sounded insane. Traditionally, if somebody's depressed, if they go to a traditional psychiatric approach, today we live with a philosophy that depression is merely a Prozac deficiency. That we live in this world today that if things aren't working out, let's not resolve what's going on inside you. Let's just drug you. It's called better living through chemistry. Yeah, just drug you and keep on going. We do the same thing with kids today. We got this attention deficit disorder. They've now upgraded it to ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. This couldn't be the fact that kids are overstimulated, don't get enough focus or attention, and don't know how to use their energy in a world where things are going so slow when they're learning in school compared to how they are on the internet or on MTV or anything else. It must be that we should drug them into submission so they get as slow as us and we're comfortable. It's an interesting way that we look at life today. The truth of the matter is these kids are using their bodies in ways that aren't acceptable, but they're not being directed. We go for the quick hit. We want the instant solution, even if it isn't the long-term solution that makes us more healthy. You can get a solution, but it may not be sustainable in a healthful way. The bottom line is, in that approach, we usually drug people. So at UC Berkeley, they tried something different. No drugs. did something you're going to think sounds so stupid. Here's all they did. They came up with a simple approach. They took people that were clinically depressed. This means you achieved high levels of depression. You've got certification now. You are clinically depressed. You are an achiever at the depression level. This means you've practiced this pattern on a regular basis. And they took them, and by the way, I know I'm sounding obnoxious right now. I'm not trying to make depression sound like these people are terrible, because I felt it in my life a long time ago too, but I don't go there anymore because I know exactly what creates it. And I want to break the pattern of us thinking we're not in control. So please understand where I'm really coming from. But the point is, here's what they did. They had people come for 4 weeks, stand in front of this mirror that has 3 parts to it, and do one silly thing. Grin from ear to ear. And they had to make them smile for no good reason for 20 minutes. Now, when they're doing this, they had to grin so big that they created crow's feet on the side of the eyes. You know, that little set of lines you're smiling so big? Now, interesting, they had to keep their shoulders back while they're doing this and breathe fully. You go, dumb idea. But what happened? Not a single person was able to remain depressed, including a woman who claimed that she was depressed even while she slept, which is one heck of an accomplishment. And you know what's interesting? At the end of these 20 days, many of them had no need for medication anymore, and that's all they changed. Only one part of what we call their triad. Just the physical part. That's how powerful it is. See, if you rise up, if you move up, if you use your body in a totally different way, you're going to feel different. Emotion is created by motion. See, we have 80 muscles in our face. How many of them are you using consciously? Are you doing anything different with your body so you can feel different? Or do you do the same things so you feel the same things? You look at your list you have written down there. That list represents a few patterns that you do in your body on a regular basis and you don't even think about it. And whenever you do it, you're going to feel it. Some make you feel good when you do that. Some make you feel bad. By the way, when you think about a movement, to breathe, you got to move. To sing, you got to move. To speak. If I start talking like this, I'm moving organs in my body in a different way than if I start speaking more like this. Hi, I'm Tony Robbins, and I'm going to share with you now how to have an extraordinary life during the next 7,000 hours of this program. You got, turn this guy off quick. There's got to be some combination of energy there, and that energy comes because I'm not sitting in a chair here. I don't have a script in front of me. I'm looking at this microphone. I'm visualizing your face, and I'm trying to think what I can give you that I know will make a difference. And I'm telling you, the number one thing is change the way you move. Change the way you use your body, and you'll change the way you feel now, instantly. I don't care how bad you felt if you change it. Now, if you just change it for a second and you move your hands up for a moment, you make a little minor change, you'll get a minor change in feeling. But if you make a radical change, if you go, yes, I'm doing this now, I'm sick of this, I promise you're going to feel different than if you go, I don't know what to do. I know this sounds so stupid, but it works. And you know what? The best study of life is what works, even if it's simple. It's nice to have things simple. Why do we have to make it so hard to feel good? Hard to feel good. Hard. Here's the second part of the triad. The second part is the pattern of focus and belief, and they relate to one another. See, whatever you focus on, you're going to feel whether it's true or not. Have you ever had an experience where somebody did something, or you thought somebody did something? Even better example. You heard, you thought, and you thought they did it to take advantage of you. And as you focused on that, you got angry or sad or hurt. And then later on, you found out you were dead wrong, that either they never did it, it wasn't true, or that wasn't their intent, and you felt bad about it, or you felt embarrassed. How can that be? Because whatever we focus on, we feel, whether it's true or not. Focus equals feeling, just like the way you move affects your feeling. See, right now, if I said to you, what are you juiced about in your life? What could you be excited about? If you really wanted to be excited in your life right now, what could you be excited about? Or what are you proud of? Or what could you be proud of if you wanted to be proud? Or who in your life do you really love? Who loves you? Think about it for a moment. Who do you really love? Who loves you? By the way, how does that feel when you focus on or you think about someone you love? See, whatever you focus on, you're going to feel. Focus equals reality to the individual, even though it's not reality in actuality. I'll say that again. Focus equals reality to the individual, even though it's not reality in actuality. That's a complicated way of saying whatever you focus on, you're going to feel, whether it's true or not, because your brain doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine, that's called focus on, or something you actually experience. That's very powerful. If you use this to your advantage, it means something very simple. How fast can you change how you feel? As fast as you change your focus. As fast as you change the way you move. See, right now, if you're focused on something that's really upsetting or something you're worried about or something you're fearful about, you're going to feel those feelings. If you focus on something you're really grateful for, you're going to feel a totally different set of feelings. See, you are in control and you can change your feelings in an instant. The problem is we don't believe we can change that fast. And the second problem is we have patterns of doing this, don't we? We tend to, like, on a regular basis, focus on what overwhelms us or focus on what we're upset with in our spouse or focus on why we failed in the past. And if you keep focusing on things where you didn't succeed, guess what? You're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're not going to take action to make things better. You can't build on the past that doesn't work. But you can also focus on what you want, on what you want to create. You can focus on the solution. Hey, when you got a problem, everybody's got problems. But 95% of your time has got to be spent on the solution. 5% on the problem. Most of us spend all the time describing the problem more and more detail, and we wonder why we feel overwhelmed. Focus is the secret key to changing, and you can do it in an instant. One way to change your focus is to change the third thing, your language patterns. See, all day long, we're thinking. What's thinking? All day long, you're asking and answering questions with yourself. Should I do this? What does this mean? Why is this? Where is this going on? That's what initiates thinking, is a question. You know what the problem is? We have patterns of questions we ask that don't serve us. Some of us ask questions like, how come this always happens to me? Well, it doesn't always happen to you. But if you ask a lousy question like that on a regular basis, your brain goes, because you're an idiot. How come I can never lose weight? Well, you can lose weight, but ask a lousy question, ask and you shall what? You receive. How come I can never lose weight? Your brain says, because you're a pig. Come up with a better question, for God's sake. See, questions direct us. Questions are a form of language. And if you want to change your life, one of the things I have people discover is what questions you're asking. And also, what phrases do you say a lot? Because phrases hypnotize us. We have certain words by themselves that'll change the way you feel. If somebody says to you, hey, listen, I think you're mistaken about that. You might have one feeling. They go, you're wrong. You feel something very different just by the language. If somebody says you're lying, you have a whole different feeling, don't you? One word can change the way you feel when someone else speaks it to you. The words you select powerfully affect you. And I don't mean just being positive and doing the Stuart Smalley thing where you got positive self-talk, right? And you say, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and by golly, people like me. No, I mean noticing the habit of the words and the emotions they create. And then third part of language is the phrases that you say with such emotional intensity that you start to believe them. We call those incantations. An incantation is like, if you remember studying mythology, a sorcerer would tell a prince over and over again a phrase over and over again with such intensity that he'd be hypnotized and he'd think that he was a frog. And so, of course, he was a frog. That's what he experienced. We experience whatever we focus on. We feel whatever we picture. We feel whatever we say to ourselves. We feel whatever we do with our bodies. Those are the three patterns. If you change those three patterns, any one of the three, you're going to change how you feel. If you change all three, you're going to radically change how you feel. If you change the pattern of how you use your body, if you change the pattern of what you focus on daily, which, by the way, I'm going to show you a technique for doing today that could change your life. Very simple. If you change the pattern of what you say to yourself with the emotional intensity you say it, you're going to change the pattern of how you feel. Now that means you could pick any feeling you want and say, if I want to feel that way, what do I do with my body? When I'm in that state, how do I move? How do I speak? What do I do? Let me try it. When I'm feeling that good, what do I focus on? What do I really focus on? And by the way, what does it mean to me when I focus on it? Because you can focus on something and one person looks at it and says, because that happened, that's why I can never be close to another man or woman in my life. That's why I can never trust again. And somebody else had the same experience. And they go, because that happened, you know what? I've learned so much about myself. And because that happened, I appreciate the person I'm with now so much. You can't have a foreground without a background, right? That's the secret to life. See, one person believes their life is over because something's happened. They gave it that meaning. Somebody else says, God's challenging me. It's time to go to the next level. We have absolute choice. We have absolute control about how we feel. And whatever feelings we put in our lives on a regular basis will determine the quality of our lives. So you can have frustration, anger, upset, overwhelm, insecurity. You can be fearful. You can live in a state of guilt, worry, whatever. Or you can live in a place called passion, joy, thankfulness, gratefulness, connection, love, wonder. And if you create those emotions on a regular basis, are you going to have a different life? You bet you are. Okay, so how do we take these three understandings and make it so we don't have to think about it, but we actually, on a regular basis, condition ourselves to have the great emotions we want and get rid of the emotions you don't want? Well, first step is awareness. See, next time you start to feel like, I'm so frustrated, I'm so angry about this, notice what you're doing with your cheeks. What are you doing with your mouth? What happened to your breathing just now to do that? What's happening to your eyebrows? Are you tightening your fingers in your hands? Because we all have very specific things we do to get into our version of anger or frustration or tired or overwhelmed. Does that make sense? Just notice what's happening to your body. Say, okay, I'm not breathing. That's a clue. Let me start with a little change there. My mouth is so tight, I can't even talk. That might be a clue why you're a little uptight. So loosen your jaw. Second thing, okay, what am I focusing on? I'm focusing on how, this isn't working. Now, to help you understand the belief part, ask yourself, in order to feel this way, what would I have to believe? In order to be frustrated, what would I have to believe? I have to believe that it should be better than it is, and it's not, and it's not working. Well, maybe it isn't working, but is that going to help you to focus on it isn't working? Let's focus on what we can do. Or if you say, I feel like it's hopeless because in order to feel hopeless, I have to believe that there's nothing I can do. Is that really true? Is there's nothing you can do? Or are you just caught up in a state? Are you just caught up in a pattern? See, if you ask yourself, what do I have to believe to feel this way? It'll help you to break that part of the triad because you'll start to say, yeah, that isn't really even true. All right, so that'll help you there. Third part of awareness is to say, okay, what am I saying to myself? Why do they do this? How come they always do these things? Why don't they ever listen? Well, I'm asking a lot of lousy questions because they may listen sometimes, but I'm saying they don't. I'm saying it with total intensity. Of course I'm going to feel bad. Let me change what I'm saying. Let me change what I'm asking. How can I turn this around? What do I need to focus on to make this work? What's the truth here? Maybe I can't control it all, but I can control what it means to me. What does this really mean? If you just have that awareness and you break your pattern, you can get out of a negative emotion in a moment. Then you can say, well, how do I want to feel? To feel like that, what would I have to do with my body? To feel like that, what would I have to focus on right now? What would I have to believe? I have to believe, I can turn anything around. I may not like it, but I can make it happen. It's just another challenge that God's given me to sculpt my muscles, right? Sculpt my soul. Throw it at me. God's the greatest trainer on earth because a great trainer, when you think you got nothing left, what do? They go, give me 6 more. And you go, 6 more? I don't even have 1 more. But, they say, yes, you do. And sure enough, you got at least 3 more in you and you develop real muscle. And now you're stronger. And what used to be hard now gets to be easy next time because you've been through it. That's what this is about. Now, here's what you can do that'll make this part of your life. All we're going to do is go after that thing we said was missing in our lives. Do you remember what it is after all this verbiage I've given you? Time with yourself. But we're going to structure that time so that we create a daily triad that puts us in a state of mind where things flow. Have you ever had that happen? It's like, yes, I know what to do. Of course. Oh, yeah, it's a challenge. Big deal. Bring it here. Let's handle it. No big deal. Come on. Don't worry. Have you been in those states where nothing can shake you? You can hope that you're going to pop into one of those states and get lucky, or you can create it every morning before you start your day. So you start with a foundation that's so powerful that it affects you and everybody around you. You can make life beautiful. Life can be beautiful for you every day if you do the things he did with his body. If you focus on life the way he focused on it, if you use language like he used, he being the man in the movie or the man in real life who embodies it so much. See, that's a role model. If you sow the same seed, you'll reap the same rewards, but you got to schedule it. Because remember what I said, if you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. But if you schedule it, it's real. Schedule it, it's real. So here's what I'm going to ask you for, an invitation and a challenge. I want you to give yourself that missing time, and I want you ideally to give yourself an hour of power, I call it, at least 5 days a week. Now, what does that mean? It means for 1 hour, I'm going to walk you through 3 things to do for an hour that will absolutely connect you to yourself and will give you a level of focus and joy and happiness and strength to deal with not only the challenges, but to enjoy your life more. If you don't do it, you're going to be driven by technology, by demands, by people, by our kids. And you know what? It's beautiful that you're willing to give to everybody else. But if you keep giving to everyone and you don't fill yourself back up, there's nothing to give. And I know you know this is true. So here's what it looks like. And by the way, if you can't do an hour, then do 30 minutes to thrive. If it's not an hour of power, give yourself at least 30 minutes. There's always 30. And if you can't do that, at least do 15 minutes to fulfillment. So I'll describe this. So there's never a day you shouldn't do this. There's always 15 minutes. But if you can lock in that hour, it'll go. And I'll tell you before I tell you how it works, if you'll just do the 15 minutes, it'll grow to the 30. It'll grow to the hour because you'll get so reinforced in your life. So what does it look like? Here's what you're going to do. The first step is that you want to make sure that the moment you wake up in the morning, there's no hesitancy to get up. So you start to train your body, which is training your mind. Remember, your body and mind are linked. Whatever you do with your body, it's going to affect your mind. You want to train your body to jump out of bed immediately with energy, without hesitancy, and to start moving. Because remember, emotion comes from motion. We've got to move. Now, ideally, you would exercise in the morning. There's a lot of reasons to do that. because of all the times, and by the way, I'm a night person, so I understand if you go morning, I ain't jumping out of bed in the morning. I turn on around midnight or 1 in the morning, and sometimes I don't go to bed to 4 or 5. So what I'm talking about, you can adapt, but just hear me out. The ideal time to work out is in the morning, because if you exercise in the morning, you turn on your metabolism and you have it for the whole day. If you don't exercise, you get no metabolism and you just keep gaining fat and your body loses its strength and you lose muscle every single year, especially as you age. But if you can train yourself to do that in the morning as the first thing, even if you have to get up earlier, or go to bed slightly earlier, or just take 1 hour less sleep, or 30 minutes less sleep, or 15-minute less sleep, if you can do that in the morning, you turn on the metabolism, but you also turn on your emotions. Movement and breath are the first phase. So what you're going to do, have your shoes beside your bed, and if you've got somebody to do this with, it's even better. I mean, if you got your lover and the first thing you do is get up in the morning and you can spend time walking with them, that's great. But you get up and you physically move. You go for a walk. Anywhere, you get outside, you get out of the house, you move immediately. Now, walking doesn't sound very dynamic and you may want to run, but you walk first to start warming up your body, warming up your metabolism. And as you're walking, there's a pattern of breathing that when you do it, it will stimulate your body to cleanse itself and it'll start to move everything you need. And the ratio of breath is you're inhaling 4 breaths in a row, so it's, and then you're exhaling 4 in a row. As you're doing this, you're actually going to be tapping fingers. You'll be doing this same pattern again and again. This pattern of breathing will alter your state. You will literally, after doing this for about 5 minutes, begin to feel radically different. Now, you're going to inhale through your nose, as you probably heard, and exhale out your mouth. And this is something called breath walking. There have been studies done on this at MIT, and it literally alters brain functioning. But you don't have to know the studies to be able to feel what it does in your system. So all you're going to do is for the first 5 minutes, enjoy yourself. Get up. You don't have to worry about, oh, I got to run right now. My back's sore. You just get up and you start to walk. You walk for about 5 minutes with this breathing pattern. Step 2, you get grateful and you begin to visualize. So in phase 2, what you're going to do now is you're going to cultivate the emotion of gratitude. What you're going to do very simply is, remember I said fear disappears when you're grateful. The minute you're grateful, you're rich. When you have everything in your life to be grateful for and you don't feel that emotion, you got nothing, you're poor. So this has to be a daily emotion. It's like the antidote to all the stress, the antidote to all the frustration. But you got to cultivate it, because if you go into a state of depression on a regular basis, pretty soon your body goes there automatically because it's conditioned, it's trained. It's like what we call anchoring it. By going into that physiology, by breathing, and by visualizing. So what you're going to do is you're going to focus on and ask yourself, what are all the things in my life I'm grateful for while you walk? So you're outdoors, you're moving, so your pattern of physiology makes you feel good. You got movement, you got emotion. Now, as you're moving, you're thinking about everything you're grateful for. And I usually start with a circle. I start with myself right here and my wife, Sage, and I think about all the things I'm grateful to God for in my life, my health. I start to think immediately, okay, my family members, and I think about them and I send love to them. I make this spiral of thought going out. And then I think about my close friends and my close business associates and then all the people I get to serve through my work in the world. And I just expand it. You think of moments you're grateful for. You know, a moment that I had with my son where he shared something with me that just made me cry. It was so beautiful. You know, there are moments in your life. So what are we doing? We're moving and breathing. That's changing your physiology. We're being grateful. That's a focus. And so now you change your focus. And now what you focus on is everything that you really want in your life, but you focus on it from the state as if it's already been achieved. I honestly start just giving thanks for it as if it's done. I am so grateful that that business deal has come together the way it has. So what I do is I begin to see it as if it's already done. Because remember, your brain can't tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you actually experience. So I see it. I feel it. I think about it. I feel the emotion as if it's already achieved. The more you can program your body and your mind and your emotions that something's achieved, your brain can do things you're unaware of. And if you focus on what you want continuously, you'll move towards it. Whatever you focus on, you move towards. Most people are focused on what they're afraid of. So as an example, when somebody's out of control in a car, they immediately look at the wall they don't want to hit. And of course, as they look at it, they steer right into it. The same thing happens in life. Wherever you focus, that's where you go. Don't focus on what you fear. Focus on what you want and make it real. The more certain you are that what you want can happen, the easier it is for your brain to figure a way. When you say this is important, your brain starts noticing anything that'll get you to what's important. And if you believe it's already happened, you know enough about life that when you have that kind of certainty, your brain will find the way. Now you start focusing on today. What do you want to create today? You think about meetings you're going to have. What do you want to make that happen? Instead of going, oh, I got to go to this meeting. What do I want? Most people think about what they have to do. Think about what you want to do. Who do you want to turn on, excite, make happy? Who do you want to make laugh? What do you want to achieve there? What do you want to accomplish? See, the more you can see it in advance, you got to remember, everything that's in your outside world started in your inside world. Everything in my life, my kids, my businesses, this conversation with you started as something in my head, and now it's real. The same is true for you. You got to create it in your head first the way you want it if you want it to show up in your life the way you want it. Most people create in their head what they don't want, and so, of course, they keep manifesting what they don't want. So even for this day now, focus on what do you want to create out of this day. Think about what's coming up. How do you want it to go? How do you want to feel? How could you respond? And just get yourself juiced about the day. So now what you need to do is incantations. So if you're walking, as you're walking, you can be doing this. You can even be doing it with the same breath you started with, or you can be going, I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. You go, that sounds so positive, thinky tone. But you know what? If you do it over and over again, you're going to be vibrating. I've done incantations my entire life. It's how I've conditioned myself. 25 years ago, when I first started speaking, I was 17 years old. I'd made some changes in my life really quickly, and I started sharing it. And I didn't have speaking skills, but I had a state. You know when you're in state and things just flow? It's just like having a conversation. You don't have to think about it. It comes out of you. But I made myself get in state because I was fearful. So I said, I got to focus on how to serve, not on am I going to do a good job. I need to focus on giving, not on how am I going to do. If you focus on how you're going to do, you're going to get worried. So I created an incantation, and I've done it for 25 years before I go on stage every single time. If anyone's been backstage, they'll see what I do. I make a big change in my body, take an explosive breath, shh, and I do this thing I call a power move that stimulates my body so I'm at the strongest state I can be. Second thing I do is I do my incantation. And what I do in your head, that doesn't affect you. Speaking engages your physiology. And when you speak with certainty and intensity, it conditions you. So the bottom line is you do this while you walk. So if you're conscious about this, you can do it under your breath, like I said. You can do it in a breathing pattern. You can do something simplistic like, every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. As you're jogging, as you're walking, every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Some old phrase from an old book from years ago. Anything will work as long as you say it with intensity. Every day and every way I'm feeling happier and happier. Every day. And you say it again and again. And what you'll actually get is a rhythm. I'll tell you what incantations do in case this sounds stupid to you. Maybe it'll help. Have you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland and getting on a ride called It's a Small World After All? If you have, you know the power of incantations, because what's stuck in your head for the next 3 weeks? That song in 37 languages, right? Or if you hear a song and you get it in your head and you can't get it out, and it goes on and on and on. Well, this is a way to get the right idea in your head and condition it, but not just the idea, the feeling. So now what you need to do is exercise, ideally 20 minutes, no less than 15, 30 even better. And if you can do 45 minutes, that's wonderful. And that's how you get to the hour. And so at the end of this hour of power, you want to celebrate. You want to say, my God, I got myself to do this thing that set me up for victory. Now, you won't have to work at celebrating, I promise you. You'll feel so good, you'll be vibrating, especially if you did the incantations. Now, this process, you might say, well, I'm not going to run 5 times a week. You don't have to. You can just go on a walk. And you can do this process, this hour of power of focus, and you can spend 10 minutes on gratitude, 10 minutes on visualizing, 10 minutes on what you want to have happen today, and do it in 30 minutes. This is your freedom. But I can tell you, if you'll give yourself an hour, where 15 or 20 of those minutes are based on these 3 things: massive changes in your physiology that make you feel great, massive changes in your focus that make you focus specifically on gratitude and specifically on what you want to have happen and feeling like it's already been achieved, and then massive changes where you push your body to be stronger and you make some incantations, you say some phrases over and over, at least 5 or 10 minutes of it, you will have conditioned your mind, your body, your emotions, and your spirit will soar. And now you will deal with problems radically differently. There won't be problems, there'll be challenges for you. And more importantly, you'll be excited to connect with people. You'll be excited about your projects. You will affect people around you in a different way because you will have an extraordinary psychology. If you want an extraordinary body, it takes a ritual, doesn't it? A ritual of diet or a ritual of exercise. If you want an extraordinary emotion and spirit, it takes rituals. One of those that you might want to add to this hour of power is prayer. If you believe in prayer, this is it, and this is a form of it. Maybe the greatest prayer is not asking for things, but saying, thank you. Thank you, Lord. Getting in that place on a daily basis for no less than 15 minutes to fulfillment and ideally the hour of power. I can promise you, if you did it for 6 months, your life will never be the same. Because all the research shows that if you even exercise for 6 months, you'll exercise for the rest of your life because it becomes physically addictive to you. If you get away from it, you'll feel pulled to do it. All you got to do right now is give it a week or 10 days. Do this with me for 10 days, and I promise you, you're going to get some momentum. I don't know if I'll ever see you again. I don't know if you'll listen to another CD. But my goal was to do everything I could to get you to give yourself what you deserve and to tell you the 3 things that you got to take control of and to remind you of the fundamentals that your life is nothing but your emotions. If you get the right emotions, you'll work out. If you're determined, you'll work out. If you're determined, you can go on a diet, but most people are trying to go on a diet and they're not determined. You can change a state that fast, but you got to get the habit. Are you sold? I hope so, because the sale is for you. It's not for me. It's for you to create what you want long term. If you will do this, and you'll even do it 4 days a week, if you'll just get a habit that you'll commit to and not break, your pride will soar. Because when you just discipline yourself a tiny bit, and by the way, this doesn't feel like discipline, it feels like joy when you do it. But if you discipline yourself just a little bit, you get a positive habit you've consciously created, it spills over into all the areas of your life. And if you stay with me on this over these next 7 days, we're going to address each of those areas with the best tools I know of. And by the way, if right now you're listening to these first 2 CDs as just part of the Edge, you don't have the whole Get the Edge program, please give yourself this gift. Get on the phone right now or go on the web, follow through and get the rest of the week so that after you're done with tomorrow, if you have it FedExed, you can keep the momentum going, keep the results happening, and get real specific about what you're going to do with your body. A real plan for that energy, for your relationship, for your career, for your finances. So we continue this, and this doesn't end just with 1 CD. And by the way, if you're going to do that, the number to call, our 800 number is 1-800-898, corny as it sounds, Tony. Tony, which means 8669 if you don't want to bother to remember it that way. 1-800-898-TONY, Tony, 8669. Or if you're calling internationally, the number is 858-535-9900. 858-535-9900. Of course, you can see us on the web at www.tonyrobbins.com. 2 B's, ROBBINS.com. Anyway, not here to give you a commercial, but I don't want you to miss out on the specifics and to keep the momentum going. So please give yourself the gift. If you found value here, take action right now as soon as this audio completes. So let's wrap it up and let me just thank you for listening, regardless of what you do. Right now, it's time to take some action. And what you want to do is starting tomorrow, or if you're crazy like me, you'll just go for a walk. Tomorrow, I want you to go do this first thing in the morning. I want you to start out your day by doing this hour of power, or this 30 minutes to thrive, or these 15 minutes of fulfillment. Just do it. The hardest part is the first step. The hardest part to get is momentum. The hardest part is get to the gym. So just do it, as they say in the Nike ads, and you'll get what you really want. So my friend, I plead with you. Give yourself this gift each day. I mean, this is really one of the most important decisions of your life. And I hope my crazy, outrageous approach pushed you in the right direction and didn't push you away. I hope somehow I found my way into your heart or your intellect or whatever part of you we've got to reach to push the button that launches your life to the next level, to the level it deserves to be. So this is the beginning of a brand new journey. And I'm really grateful that you've allowed me to be your coach in this first part of the process. I think we can make immense progress. So let's start taking real action. Let's not just talk a good game, you and I. Let's do it. Just get your butt out there, because once you get out there, you'll get out there again and again. You'll get that momentum. It'll take over, and the best of you will start showing up every day. And when the best of you shows up every day, you're going to start appreciating yourself, and so will everybody else. So session number 2 in the Edge. How do we transform our bodies, our emotions, our finances, our relationships, and our life? First, I want to congratulate you for making it to session number 2, because as you probably know, and this blows my mind, most people will invest in a book, a tape, something can change their life, and the minute they get it, they feel comfortable. The minute they get it, they feel no more drive to create a change. And so they look at the package and they feel good and they put it on the shelf. Very few people will ever read past the first chapter in a book, for example. I remember reading years ago that less than 10% of the people who buy a book read past the first chapter. Well, the first session in an audio program is the equivalent of the first chapter. So if you're here, I know you're one of the few who do versus the many who talk, and I want to welcome you back. Here's our focus in this session. There are patterns of success, and there are patterns of failure. What I mean by that is that success leaves clues. People who succeed are not lucky. People that are physically fit and vital and healthy and energetic are not just born with that. They have a pattern of things they think about and they do. So in our first session, we wanted to get you to establish a pattern, an ultimate pattern that would give you time with yourself so that you would focus on the things that matter most and not get sucked into the hypnosis of the culture that says just go, 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 and maybe one day wake up someday and you'll be happy. Someday when I have more money, someday when my kids grow up, someday when my kids finally get out of school, someday when I find that person, someday when I get that raise. But of course, the road to someday leads to a town called nowhere. It never shows up. So what I really want to do with you today is I want to have a session with you that I call a results workshop. This is not just listen passively and kind of understand stuff. Well, you can do that in the beginning. But I'm going to take you through 7 steps that will help you to absolutely take yourself from having an idea to actually making it work, from having a complaint to having the results you deserve. And it's really simple and we'll make it fun. But first, before we do that, one of the things we got to look at is what prevents you from following through? What's preventing you from taking action? And let's relate this both to what we talked about yesterday and creating this beautiful hour of power, this commitment to yourself, this connection with yourself. But let's also relate it to dietary change or any other change that you want to make. Why don't we follow through? And then let's say, what does it take to follow through? And then let's just do it. Well, the first thing to realize is the difference in people's lives is the difference in their standards. Now, I know that sounds pretty darn basic, but when I say to people, what does it take to change your life? The first thing I always say is raise your standards. Now, what do you mean raise your standards? How basic can you get? What I mean is you got to turn your shoulds into musts. Everybody's got a list of shoulds. I should do this. I should follow through. I should go on a diet. I should do my hour of power. I should spend more time with my kids. I should make more cold calls in my business. But they don't actually do anything. What you got to do is make it a must. When something is a must, you follow through. But most of us don't because we think, it's too big a task, or it's overwhelming, or we just flat don't really believe that we're going to get the result. Very often what we do is we focus on the process we have to go through instead of the outcome. I mean, most people that own their own business, if I ask them today, if you knew all you had to go through to make this business succeed, would you have even started? And most of them laugh and say, I don't know that I would. See, people that succeed, they focus on how they're going to feel at the end of the process. People that never start look at what they got to go through. If there's something you keep talking about doing and you're not following through, I promise you, as you go through these 7 steps, you're going to find out not only why you're not doing it, but what you need to do to change it, and you can do it today. So stay with me, okay? And this may seem unreasonable to take time for yourself each day. It's an unreasonable amount of time, an hour for yourself. I think that's ridiculous, and I know you probably do too, or you wouldn't be listening to this. But a lot of people think that way. And you know what? Unreasonable people rule the world. It's unreasonable to think a man could be locked up for 27 years against his will when he did nothing wrong. But Nelson Mandela not only went through that process, but came out on the other side and came out and said, no, let's work together to bring the country together. Anyone would have understood if he wanted to kill everybody who took a quarter of a century of his life. But he's an unreasonable man. That's why we respected him. To think some nun who had no money and no background and no political contacts could literally help people that were dying in more than 100 nations around the world. And that when she actually passed away, virtually every major leader in the world would come to her funeral would seem ridiculous. But Mother Teresa was an unreasonable woman, an unreasonable amount of love for people that no one else would love. Get unreasonable and everything's possible. If you get reasonable, you're going to have to lower your standards and drop down to what everybody else expects. And if you get your expectations down to the same level as the average person, you're going to have an average life. Nobody listening to a program like this, certainly not you and I, would ever settle for that. So if I'm intense, know it's because the more you demand of yourself, the more you're going to get out of this program. Because remember what we said? Only one thing creates an extraordinary life, an extraordinary mindset, an extraordinary psychology. Remember the 3 things you got to have to feel great or to feel bad? If you're going to feel great or bad, you got to change the way you use your body. So even as you're listening to me here, maybe sit up in your chair, or if you're walking, breathe and feel strong. And second thing you got to do is focus on what it is you want instead of what you got to go through. What else you got to do? Give things a powerful, positive meaning. If you find something in these 7 steps you don't like about the way you've been believing and the way you've been acting, that's good. Don't beat yourself up. Just say, you know what? Now I know it, so I can change it. And thirdly, remember to watch your language, those language patterns. When you say, oh, do I have to do this? No, you get to do it. This is your gift to yourself. So let's answer that first question. Here we spent the first CD talking to you about giving yourself time for yourself, a time to enjoy, a time to lock in what you want, a time for gratitude, a time to really program yourself for the kinds of successes you deserve. So why wouldn't people take that time out? Well, one reason is that people see the exercises involved and people have an interesting association to exercise. That's why I say just start by moving, right? But what happens is we're not in practice as a culture. We're not conditioned to discipline our focus, to discipline our bodies, to move ourselves. In fact, the word discipline for most people has a negative connotation, doesn't it? But the truth is anyone who's done it for a while loves that word because it gives you pride. It gives you excitement. You love the feeling of knowing that discipline just means you are in charge, that when you say something to yourself, you do it, that your word means something. That has power, and most people don't have it. That's why they fear discipline. They think discipline means a lack of freedom when discipline equals freedom. Discipline is, man, I don't even have to think about it. I decide and I do. That has power. But why don't most people do it? They don't have practice at it. They've not conditioned themselves to do it. They just have no experience in it. And then they don't get there for the following reasons. First, number one reason, they rationalize. Now, we all rationalize at times, don't we? What's rationalization? It's when you tell yourself a story, when you come up with a reason why it's okay not to do something. You don't say it's okay. You just go, well, I know it's important, but, or, I'm really committed to it, but. Whenever you hear somebody say but, they usually have a big one. Because what happens is they haven't followed through. They're coming up with excuses about why not to do something, and so they don't do it. So they sit around, they never get the result they want. See, the people say, what are some of the rationalizations? What are some of the stories? Because I always tell people, and I said this to you in the first session, I hope you heard it. The only thing keeping you from what it is you really want is the story you have about why you can't have it. So what's that story? Well, somebody goes, well, I don't have the time. Listen, this is the only thing that is equal in all of humanity. We do not have equal opportunity. We do not have equal strength or intelligence or background or education or love. The only thing that's equal is the amount of hours we have. And so the truth of the matter is you have all the time there is. Whatever you make a must, you will make happen. If it's a should, it'll happen only if it comes together. So it's not you don't have time. Because who creates your schedule? So, well, I'm responsible to everybody. Then take an hour less of sleep and give this to yourself. I guarantee you're going to get further by this hour of focus and movement than you're ever going to do by sleeping. And most people sleep way too much anyway. They're sleeping their life away. But here's the real question. Not what do other people do, what do you do? Honestly, how do you rationalize? And I know you probably don't call it that. None of us do, but we do it. How do you rationalize not doing things? What's the most common rationalizations? In fact, in a moment, I want you to turn the CD off because I bet there's a pattern. Remember we said there are patterns to success and patterns to failure? I'd like you to stop for a second. I want you to write down what are the most common reasons why you don't do things. What are the stories you say? Because you're going to discover you use the same story about exercise you use for other things you don't do. And I want you to take a moment and be honest with yourself because the antidote to rationalization is self-honesty. And there's immense power in that. Do you agree with me on this? So if you're just in your car and you can't write, pull over. You can write. Grab a pen. All right? Get real. This is your life. It'll only take you a minute. Pull over. Or at least do it in your head. Turn the CD off right now and write down at least 5 rationalizations you use not to follow through. Go. Well, welcome back from your rationalization exercise. Now, what did you learn? Well, I'll tell you what, when I did this, I learned that I was one lying sack of something. I was just telling myself story after story. Did you find that out too? Were you honest with yourself? Seriously? Well, here are the common things people say. The first thing is the one we've already covered. People say, I just don't have time. You'll hear all kinds of patterns around time, by the way. They say, I don't have time. That's the most common one. But then other people say things like, well, I can do it tomorrow. They just manipulate time. It's the ultimate mañana syndrome. And mañana never comes. So this is one of the biggest rationalizations. And what this becomes, understanding how to change becomes understanding the power of now. See, when you begin to understand the power of now, it's amazing what occurs. Now is what you can do in a moment. The reason people don't start things very often, why they feel they have to rationalize is they think doing the project is going to be too difficult. It's going to cost them something, time, energy, money, resources, and they want something else. They want immediate comfort. They want to feel good in this moment. They say, well, I'm too tired, or it'll take too long, or it's too far. There's all kinds of these twos that hang out with people. And the pattern of it's too something is really that the person has made what they need to do too big in their head. So one of the things you got to do is understand the power of now and understand the power of chunking, which simply means instead of rationalizing, say, okay, I'm going to do one thing right now. Let me just make one phone call on this. Let me write one paragraph. Let me go out and just walk for 10 minutes. Because see, I used to say, I don't have the hour. So I said, you know what? I've got 10 minutes. or I've got 20. There's no excuse not to work out for 15 minutes. I can walk for 5, be grateful, and run for 15, and I'll get a good sweat up, but I can be back in 20 minutes and rock and roll. There's no excuse for that. And you know what's happened? I've never gone out and worked out for 20 minutes. Because once you get out there and you start getting into state, you get momentum, don't you? Or I say, okay, I'm just going to make one phone call. Well, I make one, and just getting out of the chair and making that phone call, now I'm in the chair. Well, now I make 3 phone calls, and pretty soon I make 10. Then I get in a conversation. Then I get stimulated. Then I'm in state, right? This is the kind of thing that happens. It also happens on the negative side. You go, well, I'll just take a minute to rest here. Oh, no. Because once that butt is in the chair, right? Once something gets in motion, it tends to stay in motion. Once something stops, it tends to stay there because you get in state. So most people are avoiding the very thing that would free them. They're avoiding the very thing that would free them also from the feelings that they have this huge project to deal with. Just do it. And in the context of your hour of power, there's no excuse. You should wake up and move. Throw on your clothes and go. Throw on your attention and go. Don't even take time to think. Make it a habit that when you roll out of bed, into your shoes. You roll out of bed, into your gear. If you'll do that, you'll have momentum. You won't have time to rationalize. You'll be busy rationalizing while you're walking, and by that time, it'll be too late. Okay? So setting up systems is a great way. But the first step is identifying, what you're doing a good job of here. What is the story you're telling yourself about why you can't do this? It'll be better tomorrow. I don't have time. I'm too tired. It's too late. It's too far. It might not work. Or it might work, and then I'll be even more successful, and then I'll be even more busy, and I have no time. Whatever story you're telling yourself, drop the story. Because what I've learned is that most people lie to themselves, and that those lies are sucking the juice out of your life. Honesty, even if it's a little uncomfortable, creates freedom. And so the real freedom is when you can tell yourself the truth and you can act upon it quickly and not sit there and think about it forever. I remember I met General Schwarzkopf for the first time many years ago, and now he's a good friend. And when I first met him, I was talking about what is it that a leader must do? And he said, tell the truth. Tell the truth to himself, tell the truth to the troops. That's what a leader's got to do, get people to tell the truth to each other. He said, because I got to tell you something, no organization, whether it be the army, whether it be a business, or whether it be an individual, nothing gets better until you admit something's wrong. And no one wants to admit that because it sounds so horrible. No one wants to be wrong. But you know what? If it's not at the level you want it, it's wrong. If it's not the level that you'd be proud of, it's wrong. Because you deserve to have it right. Have it at the level you deserve. Living on the edge of what is possible. Living at the peak. Living life at that level of fulfillment. And that only happens when you stop telling the story, you stop rationalizing, you tell yourself the truth. Now, some people say, well, I'm not lying to myself. But what they're doing is they're using softeners. You know what I mean by that? Like, someone says, well, it's not that bad. It's a month till summer. I mean, I'm only a few pounds overweight. Or they compare to something else. They say things like, well, I'm much better than I used to be. So it makes themselves feel good. Because if you feel bad, you got to do something to change. And if you feel good, you don't have to change. You lose the drive. You don't want to lose your drive. Most people are constantly trying to make themselves feel good without actually changing anything. And when you do that, you train yourself to accept mediocrity. And mediocrity, by the way, doesn't mean compared to other people. Mediocrity is anytime you settle for less than who you really are. Because even though you may be doing much better than everybody around you, maybe people you're hanging around with are the wrong people to hang around with, and you just do it because it makes you feel good. Makes you feel good. Makes you feel good. The only thing that makes us feel good long term is living life at our level. I remember I met years ago John Wooden, the UCLA basketball coach, the winningest coach of all time in college basketball history. He won 11 out of 12 national championships, NCAA championships, and he won 7 in a row. I mean, the most anybody else has won in a row is 3 in a row of national championships. Now, this guy was a genius, and I'll tell you, he won more than anybody, but he didn't focus on winning. He focused on getting guys to tell the truth. He focused on eliminating rationalization. And the way he did it is he said, here's a real simple thing I want you men to know. At the end of every game, only you will know whether you really won or lost. And it will not be based on the points on the board. Because there's sometimes when you play nowhere near your potential and you beat the other team just because they're terrible or because you got lucky. And if you got more points on the board, but you didn't give your all, you're a loser. Because in life, what you give, you get to keep. And what you fail to give, you lose forever. He said, if at the end of the day, you got fewer points on the board, but you gave every ounce of your soul on that court, you know you can walk away the winner because they may have been lucky. They may have had more skill. They may have had a better team, but they didn't get more out of themselves. Winning and losing in life is an internal game, and it comes from telling yourself the truth. And if you do that, if every day you demand more from yourself than other people would expect, you give your all, you're going to most often with more points on the board than the other team. So we got to tell ourselves the truth, and we can't use softeners. You can't say, well, I'm a little overweight, or I'm a bit robust. No, your butt is bigger than Chicago. You're fat. Tell yourself the truth, because until you do that, you have no reason to change. So the reason people don't change, number one, they're out of practice. Number two, they rationalize, they tell stories, they use softeners, they lie to themselves. Third reason is they got an ineffective strategy. Some people, they're willing to go for it, and they're not even rationalizing, but, they're running east looking for a sunset. And I don't care how positive you are. I don't care how committed you are. I don't care how high your standards are. If you got a strategy that doesn't work, you got a problem. And let me tell you, the number one thing that doesn't work for people, since our first focus here to get an extraordinary life and extraordinary psychology is get an extraordinary body, right? And if you're going to have that extraordinary body, you got to have this time to make it strong every day. Increase that metabolism. Feel that feeling of power and passion in your body. But you know what most people do? They want to look good, and so their primary strategy is change their diet, and they do that alone. Diet alone is never going to give you the level of health you deserve. It's a critical component. But diet alone is not enough, because what happens when you diet? Well, the very simple thing occurs. As soon as you start to diet, what are you doing? You're depriving yourself. Well, as soon as you deprive yourself, guess what happens? The body's not getting as much, so it starts to use some of the fat built inside of you, and sure enough, you start to lose weight. Step 2. But after you deprive yourself and lose weight for a while, there's a point when you get sick of depriving yourself, so what do? You binge, step 3. And when you binge, what happens? You gain back the same weight, usually a few pounds more, because when you go on a diet where you're limiting your calories, one simple thing occurs. The body knows it has to conserve its energy. So what it does is it gets better at storing fat. So when you finally go to eat, your metabolism is dropped. It takes less food for you to gain fat faster. That's why 5 days out of the week, you got to have your hour of power. You're out there moving, exercising, sweating at least to level 7 so you get that energy up. That's why you want to build some muscle in your body. That's why it's critical. Don't you deserve to create the rituals that for a lifetime will give you the health, the vitality, the energy you deserve? You won't get it by rationalizing. You won't get it by softening. You get it by telling yourself the truth and getting your butt in gear, but also making a strategy that works. Now, by the way, let me tell you why most people don't make the change besides the rationalization. They get hooked in another pattern. And that pattern is they get in what I call the pressure cooker. The pressure cooker is, here's what occurs. People don't change. So things get worse until finally it gets so bad, you got to change. And what makes it so bad is you get so much pain. One day, you can't pick up your own telephone calls because you're afraid it's going to be a bill collector. You get to the point where you can't get your butt to squeeze in the regular class seat on the airplane without having your ability to breathe impaired. Something occurs that finally pushes you over the edge. You go, not another day, not another moment. You get so much pain, step 1, that you take step 2, you take action. Now, when you take action, you go to step 3, you get results. You start to lose weight, as an example. When you start to lose weight, step 4 happens. The pain reduces. When the pain reduces, step 5 happens. You lose your drive. When you lose your drive, step 6 happens. You stop taking action at the same level. And when you stop taking action at the same level, the final step occurs, step 7, you go right back to where you started from. This is the pressure cooker. And then people do it again and again and again. The way to avoid the pressure cooker is to walk yourself through the 7 steps of conscious change. And these 7 steps we want to use right now so that you really implement your hour of power, so you keep that advantage to your life, you keep that edge, but also so you get that extraordinary experience of connection with yourself, that time with yourself. Also, these would be the same 7 steps you'll go through to make a dietary change. So let's get to them real fast. Here they are. They're really simple. Number 1, get disturbed. Now you might say, get disturbed? That doesn't sound like a very sweet first step, Tony. Well, it isn't sweet, but it works. Because we can't possibly change unless we get ourselves disturbed enough that we're going to do something about it. What it really means is get honest with yourself. Don't use any softeners. Don't use any rationalizations. Don't compare yourself to other people so you can feel okay. Don't compare how you used to be and say, look, I used to be worse, so it's not that bad. All those things will steal away your drive. See, if you really wanted to get disturbed and you feel like you're overweight, then rip off your clothes right now and look in a full-length mirror, and then turn around and look at the parts that you never want to see. The parts that are scaring the family? Come on, let's be honest here. You've got to see this stuff, and you've got to be truthful, don't you? Because if you're not truthful with yourself, you can never have the energy to change. You got to get disturbed. You finally say, no more, not another minute, not another day. If you're not willing to go for the full naked approach, you could put on some clothes that you used to wear and look in the mirror and feel the tightness. See, anything that can make you move. Now you say, well, my problem is not overweight, Tony. Then look at what you're missing out on because you haven't followed through, because you haven't made the decision, because you haven't spent the time with your kids, because you haven't been there having some date nights or some special time with the person you love. Get associated to the problem before it gets out of control. Make it worse than it even is if you need to get disturbed, because you need to get yourself to take action, don't you? You wouldn't have thought of something you wanted to change unless there was something about it that wasn't good enough. And the challenge is just getting yourself to get something visceral, something that'll move you. But if you're not disturbed, you're not going to change. It's that simple. And most of us, when we get disturbed, what do we do immediately? We immediately placate ourselves. We immediately try and get rid of the pain. Pain is your friend if you don't just live there, if you use it for drive. See, there's a reason you begin this pain. It's a signal to your nervous system saying, this isn't working, you must do something. But what we do is we pop an aspirin or a drug or smoke a cigarette or eat some more food or distract ourselves with TV. We find some drug of choice that's acceptable in society or in our peer group, and we kill the pain, and therefore we kill the drive. Drive is your friend. You will only have drive if you are disturbed. Get disturbed by getting really clear with yourself. When you have hunger, you'll move forward. I don't mean physical hunger. I mean a hunger for something deeper and richer. Hunger only happens by getting disturbed. Now, here's another way to get disturbed, not just look at how bad it is. Get around where it's better. Get around people who are playing life at a higher level, where they are really physically fit. They're strong. They're energetic. They're passionate. They're fun. They got a great relationship. Because seeing that will also disturb you, because you won't be able to separate the fact that your life is not like that. You can try to rationalize all you want, but the more you're around people who are playing life at the highest level, the more disturbed you'll get. You'll either run back to your friends so you can feel good about your life compared to them, or you'll join a new peer group. You want to be good at tennis? You got to play somebody better than you are, which is disturbing. And it creates drive and it makes you have to get better. Play somebody who's worse than you are. There's nothing disturbing about that. It's boring. It's not disturbing. And staying where you are is boring. So you got to get disturbed. Now, if all you do is get disturbed and get all stirred up, that's not going to be really good. And after a while, you're going to want to escape that. So you got to turn that feeling of being disturbed into drive. And the way you do that is while you're disturbed, step 2, you make a real decision. And that decision requires that you don't decide just what to do. Some people get disturbed about, let's say, their body, and so they go, okay, I'm going to run 22 miles. They make a decision. But that's not what they want. They don't want to run 22 miles. That's the game plan. See, everyone who's successful has what I call an RPM plan. This is what we teach in the time of your life. An RPM plan means a plan that has 3 answers to 3 questions. Number 1, they know what result they're after. That's what the R is. They know what they want. The result, the specific result they're committed to. I've never met a successful person who doesn't know what they want, because your chances of suddenly bumping into what you want without knowing what it is are slim and none. Number 2, they know their purpose, which means they know why they want it. If you want something, I want $1 million. I want, 12% body fat. I want, this great relationship. Well, that's wonderful, but that's a should. What makes it a must is when you have enough reasons to make it happen no matter what, enough purpose behind it. Purpose has power. You can't just know what it is you want. You don't know why you want it, the purpose for it. And the M is you need a massive action plan. And a massive action plan means lots of ways to get the job done. Because if you say I'm going to run 20 miles and then you get to about 3 and you can't go another step and then all of a sudden you're tight as heck, now you're going to go, well, I can't run. Well, your outcome was not to run. The result you're after wasn't running. It was to lose 20 pounds. It was to be energetic. It was to have your energy increased. So you're focusing on something you can't do instead of saying, I can lose the weight still because I must. Here's why, and here's my plan. Okay, I'll swim. The running didn't work, I'll swim. I'll walk. I'll do this. There are a million ways. You need a massive action plan. So get disturbed and then make a decision about what you want and why you want it. What's your ultimate vision? What's your ultimate purpose? So let's try this with you right now. Let's get honest. Let's take a moment right now. What is it in your life that is not good enough, and if you're honest, is really disgusting? You go, Tony, what's disgusting in my life? Thank you very much. Nothing. My life is perfect. Bull. Nobody's life is perfect if they're healthy. I mean, think about it. Anybody who's honest has a gap in their life between where they are and where they want to be in some area. If your body's perfect, then you don't have enough time. If your time is perfect, then you don't know your children. If your children are perfect, then your finances are screwed up. Come on, it's part of being human. So honest people can look at the gap, and because they can look at it, they can close the gap between where they are and where they want to be quickly. But you know what? As soon as you close it, you'll just create another one because you'll raise your standards. That's what life's about, right? So let's get honest. Right now, what's disturbing? I want you to turn this disc off, and I want you to do 2 things. I want you to write down, number 1, what if you're honest, are you unhappy about? In your career, in your business, in yourself, in your rationalizations? Is it a habit of eating? Is it emotion? Is it not taking time for yourself? What's something that's disturbing? And then step number 2, what do you want? Don't just stay disturbed. You're right, that won't feel good. Get disturbed so you have the energy to make change a must and not a should. Write it down. What is it you're really tired of, you're sick of, you're going to change now? And then step 2, make a decision. Write down what you really want now. What are you going to do instead? The result I'm committed to doing instead is this. I'm going to feel this way. I'm going to change my state. I'm going to stop telling my story. I'm going to schedule this time with my kids or with myself. I'm going to work out. I'm going to hire a trainer tomorrow. Make a decision. That's where all the power is. Don't just say something like, I want to make more money. Fine, here's $1. Get out of here. Don't say, I want to lose some weight. Fine, lose a pound and get out of here. You've got to be specific about what it is that's disturbing you, why it's disturbing you. And then secondly, write down what are you committed to now and why. Then turn me back on. Go. Do it right now. Don't you keep listening to me. Turn this off. I don't care if you're in the car. You can still do this. Come on, turn it off. This is about taking action. You don't get the edge by talking and listen. You get the edge by doing. Let's do it. Come back to me when you're done. Bye. Okay, welcome back. Now, what did you learn and what did you experience? I had some people here in the studio while we're doing this tape. I asked them to do the homework and see what experience that they've had. And they said it was a bit painful. I hope it was for you because, 2 things drive us in life, pain and pleasure. And what you're really doing in this process is by discovering what disturbs you is you're tapping into the power of pain when it's used intelligently, when it's used with your capacity to create drive. Remember, if you don't get disturbed by anything, something that's undisturbed is not going to move. It's certainly not going to make it through the obstacles that are necessary to achieve something of significant value for your life. So once you do that, though, you don't want to just be disturbed, as I said. You've got to now focus on, okay, this is not good enough. That's good. That creates energy. Now that it's not good enough, what do you want? Because if you stay focused on what you don't do, what you're not following through on, what you're unhappy about, then all you'll do is continue to rotate through the emotion that makes you disempowered. So you got to get clear on the result and get as specific as possible and then know why you're going to follow through, why it's a must. Now, let's take a couple of examples, typical things that I hear and some things that we actually heard here in the studio as well. One person here said there were actually 2 things that were disturbing him. He said the first one is that he's got this great workout equipment. He spent all the money and all the energy to make sure he got the very best stuff. He configured it, organized it so that it was ready to go, but he just doesn't work out. The reason is he goes through all those things we talked about earlier, right? All the stories about he doesn't have time. I'll get to it tomorrow. I said, but what's really disturbing about it? So what's disturbing is that it's inconsistent with me as a person because I'm an achiever. I make things happen. And he said, I'm not following through. And he said, what's really disturbing, honestly, is I know I'm not doing it because I'm getting older and I realize I don't have the same capacity as I used to have. And I refuse to grow old, so rather than face the fact that maybe I'm lifting a little less or I have a little less aerobic capacity than I had before, I just kind of say, I'll do this tomorrow. Now, the truth of the matter is, to educate him or anybody else, they've been doing research over the last 10 years at several universities here in the United States where they're taking people who are in their mid-60s, people who have never worked out in their life, and training to lift weights as an example. And they're developing within these men and women in their 60s the same level of muscular strength as men and women in their 20s and 30s. So it may not be that you're getting old as much as you've gotten older, you've made less of a priority to use these muscles in a way that puts a significant demand on them. It's like osteoporosis. Research now, all the doctors now see that if you don't make demands on your bones, they get weaker, they don't get stronger. But the point of the matter is that's what was bothering him. And he said that what he really decided is he really is committed to working out on a consistent basis. And of course, he could make that more specific, 3 times a week, 2 times a week, because if he makes it general, he still won't achieve it. You won't have a way to measure whether you're making it or not. And then he said the why for him is he really, truly wants that sense of passion, that energy, that sense of vitality back in his life, and the sense that he's able to conquer things. Now, he said another thing that disturbed him, he was on a roll. He went for 2. He said the other thing was that he's been a songwriter for years, and he said 20 years ago, Johnny Mercer, the guy that wrote Moon River and some of those classic songs, of the person who told him, you write for the wastebasket. This is what made him successful. That instead of writing and trying to be perfect, which no one can be, and that keeps you from actually writing, you write just for the sake of writing, getting it out and knowing that whatever you get out, you're not going to judge it. It's designed for the wastebasket. And what that does, it gets momentum going. And then pretty soon you start to actually get results. So when he heard that, he said he acted upon it, but He did it for 6 weeks. It was the best songwriting of his career, and for 20 years, he's been trying to get back to that. He said, it's disturbing to think something so simple I've not followed through on. And I said, well, what do you want? He says, I want to make sure, and again, he said, I want to write more songs, but he wasn't specific. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, as you're looking at what you wrote down, remember, the reason we say not only what do you want, but we call it an RPM plan, is what is the specific result, the measurable result? How many times a week? How many pages? Something that you can actually measure. Otherwise, it's a vague dream that you won't follow through on. By the way, he said, throughout the day, he said, I have this vague feeling that like songs are ready to be born, but he said, I don't pick up the pen and paper. And he said, and I never even get pregnant. So this is a process. And I said, why do you want this? He said, because I am a songwriter. That's my purpose. That's what I'm about as a human being. And not to do this is not to be fully alive. So what have we got within this man? Well, we've got 2 areas of his life that he's disturbed about. And he said, it was painful to do this, but that's good. Because even though he said it's painful, it's interesting, his energy increased as he talked about it. And you can see as I'm talking right now, I can see him through the glass. He's kind of nodding his head. And, you can see him. He's like getting more committed. Because commitment comes because there's something sizable on the line, both pain if you don't follow through and pleasure if you do. Now, we got to refine it. He's got an R and a P to his RPM plan. He knows the result. He knows the why. That'll give him drive. Now he's got to come up with a map. What's the massive action plan? What are the little and big things he can do immediately to get results? Because that's the 3rd step we're going to go through in these 7 steps to get yourself to create lasting change, lasting improvement. Whether it's getting you to do your hour of power or make a dietary change, you're going to have to get disturbed with what you're doing and you're not going to change your diet. You're going to have to get yourself to make a decision about what you really want specifically and why you want it. So once you decide, the why will get you to follow through. And then step 3 is you've got to come up with a real plan. And that's what an RPM plan is. A very specific result, a very specific purpose that moves you. It doesn't matter how it sounds. Does it move you to action? Does it give you enough reasons, both positive and negative, to move? And you got a map, a plan to make that occur. But before you do your map, let's look at some other examples. Another person here in the studio is a gentleman that owns the studio. And he's a very successful man. And he said what's really disturbing to him is that he doesn't have enough time in his life. He said, I'm so busy working all the time because in my business, it's money and time are connected together. You either have a lot of time and no money or a lot of money and no time. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. And he said, so he realized this a long time ago and he came up with a solution, which was to create some products so that he could make money while he slept. He said he's got 4 of those products that are 95% done. He said it would be so easy to just get them done and get them on the web. But he hasn't done it, and that disturbs him. I said, what really disturbs you about not having time? Because I want to find a deeper level of pain, something that'll move him. And he said, really, that my kids are growing up and that I'm so busy, I'm not really there to experience and enjoy them. And you could hear his whole tone change. I go, Robbins, why are you making him feel this kind of pain? What, are you trying to depress him or something? No, we're trying to get to what's real. We're so busy covering up the things we're unhappy about or stuffing them down with food or alcohol or television set or more work that we never get to what matters to us. See, the only way you get real lasting change is to get down to what really matters to you personally. And that's okay if it's painful. You're not going to live there. You're just going to go there to find what's real. Does that make sense? I hope it does for you because it's that self-honesty that makes all change possible. So I said, okay, great. What do you want? He said, well, I want to complete these 4 products. I said, okay, great. So now he's got a specific result. Now he's got to decide by when, right? Because he got to be a specific result. A specific result is what and by when. Otherwise, there's no way to measure it. And you can't manage something you can't measure, right? If it's too general, there's no way to get it. So he said, okay, I'm going to get these done by X time. And I said, why is it so important to you? He said, why? Because the status quo is driving me crazy. I said, well, there's a positive reason. And he said, but also because it'll be fun. It'll be fulfilling to get it done, and it'll give me my time. And what's great about what he gave is he gave reasons that are painful and pleasurable. Listen, we're all creatures that need to avoid pain, and we desire pleasure. Using those is being intelligent. Running around and pretending like there's nothing wrong or you're totally fulfilled and happy when you're not, it's called lying to yourself, deceiving yourself, and it eventually will bite you. It may look good for a while on the surface, but it will not fulfill you. Does that make sense? I've said this a couple times, haven't I? But that's because I want you to get it. I want you to think about it. I want you to hear me rant. I want you to own it if it makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, then throw it out. But I think if you look at it from your own life experience, you'll find this is true. And you'll find this is true. And you'll find this is true. So let's go to step number 3. Step number 3 is you got to create a real plan. Now, we've already begun that because an RPM plan, by the way, we call it RPM because RPM stands for the Rapid Planning Method. This is what I teach in the Time of Your Life, and we teach it in companies, and we show people how to immediately, bam, produce a quick plan that people really follow through on. Because most people, when they do a plan, they think the job's over. But the truth is, when you got a plan, the job's begun. And the only way you're going to follow through is if you have absolute clarity of what you're after. Because along the way, a lot of actions you take aren't going to work. So if you think the action is the goal, like we said earlier, if you think running 20 miles is the goal rather than losing 20 pounds, well, then if something interferes with your ability to run, then you can't achieve the goal. You got to make sure you know what you're after and you can change your approach to get there. And you got to know why you're after it, because when the going gets tough, the difference in following through or not is having enough reasons. Reasons come first, answers come second. If you get a big enough why to do something, big enough reasons, you can figure out how to do it. So you might want to juice up the result you wrote down. Like, this is what I'm after. Maybe be more specific. By when? And you might want to write a few more reasons, but then I want you to step 3. I want you to draw out a map. And when I say a map, I want it to be very simple and specific. Just write down anything first that you could do to achieve that goal. Instead of trying to be perfect again and saying, well, I got to do this first and then this and then this, that makes it hard. Just brainstorm. Anything you could do. When you're done with that map, you're going to asterisk the things that you think are musts. Meaning, you might come up with 10 or 15 things you could do to achieve that outcome. It's 10 or 15 steps. You might need to do them all, but I want you to asterisk the 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that you must do and that you can do, that are within your control, that would absolutely get you the result you're after. So you can have that sense of certainty that this is really going to happen. So I want you to do that right now. You can refine your result, put a deadline on it, add a few reasons, so you got a good, strong purpose, and then do the M in RPM, the massive action plan. What specific actions are you going to take immediately to get this done? And by the way, I'll give you a clue. Write down little things you can do immediately. Because one of the beliefs I have is never, ever leave the sight of setting a goal without doing something towards its achievement. This is how you get momentum. If you get all excited and you start to create this plan and you don't actually do something immediately, you'll get back caught up. You'll get distracted by your other work commitments, or someone else have a demand from you, or something at home will get you. You get caught up in the normal grind. So I never leave the sight of setting a goal without doing something towards its attainment. Send an email, make a phone call, book a meeting, go get a book, right? Do something specific that moves you towards this immediately. So you want to write some things you can do immediately, and write some little things and some big things. One of the ways to get a really great plan is do something that really commits you in that action. So maybe if you're overweight again, using that same example, maybe what you do is you go in the kitchen and you rip out everything in that kitchen, everything in the refrigerator that you know doesn't belong there. It's not good for you. And then you carry it under your arms delicately and you head for the bathroom. You bring a CD player or an audio tape and you lift up that porcelain goddess and you play the music in the background as you dump the stuff down the toilet and you flush it away forever. Maybe the music you play is "We Are the Champions of the World." I don't know what you do. Do something crazy. Committed act. Do something that commits yourself. Write down your massive action plan and make it very specific things you're going to do. Maybe instead of saying, well, I'll do some research on the internet maybe this week, say on Thursday, I'm going to do 1 hour of research on the internet. I'm going to compare 3 companies to look at to decide where to invest. Or you know what? I'm going to do exercise for 25 minutes, 5 times a week. Be as specific as possible. I don't know what the specific thing is for you, but do it. And if you can get yourself to not only write something down, but today, go do something that commits you, you're going to get momentum. You're going to find yourself saying, this is easy. And everybody around you, including yourself, is going to know you mean it. See, when we say we're going to do something and then we don't do anything, it tells your brain you don't mean it. So let's start right now by coming up with that plan, okay? Write down your massive action plan, and you can come up with all kinds of things. You can always shorten it later. Come up with a brainstorm, a whole list of things that you can shorten if you want to, all the possibilities. So you got a lot of choices, okay? All right, go, do it right now. Pause the CD and let's do it. Okay, I'm assuming that you're now back with me because you've completed your map. In fact, you've got an RPM plan. By the way, what does RPM stand for besides Rapid Planning Method? Well, it's a results-focused, purpose-driven, massive action plan. I mean, that's how you get life results. You don't get it by thinking about it or talking about it or rationalizing it. You get it by getting incredibly focused on the result. You get in the sense of drive from your purpose, and you create a map, a massive action plan that'll get you going to get the result and to make that result a reality. Now, this RPM, by also as a metaphor, obviously, it's like in a car. When you increase the RPMs, you increase the energy, the power to actually produce results. That's what this does as well. So I'll give you a couple examples and let's see how these relate to yours, if there's anything you can learn from these. One of the people here earlier who said that they really want to do these songs but haven't done them in 20 years at the same level anyway, said it's actually very simple. They decided they're going to make sure that they're working on songs every single week. And the action plan is, number one, within this next week, he's going to put a clipboard by his bed. Step two, when he opens his eyes every single day, 5 days a week, he's going to spend the first 30 minutes just writing as if he's going to write stuff that's going to go in the trash. So there's no limitation. He's totally in the creative flow. Because once you get in that flow, more comes through you. Now, by the way, does this sound almost like a part of his hour of power? You bet. He's starting out with the first half hour for himself, for his greatest passion. By the way, how do you think that'll affect the rest of his day, no matter what else he does? So he said, then the next thing he's going to do is on the weekends, he's going to commit 1 hour to review those notes and edit them and actually put them into something that's real. See if he can take from these great ideas and actually produce something of real value. Now, if he does that every single week, his chances of his songwriting exploding are absolutely, I can't say guaranteed. Nothing in life is guaranteed. But the opportunity for that to happen, it's going to occur. You know why? He's no longer talking about it. He's no longer just envisioning it. He's begun to plan it, which makes it possible. It's not possible when you're just talking about it. And now he's scheduling it so it's real. That's going to get him the results he wants. And by the way, he has the same thing for his workout schedule. He's got his outcome of what he wants to do. He's going to work out 3 times a week, aerobically, twice anaerobically. He's got the days. And most importantly, he's got starting with today as his first action item, and he's got the time during the day. And he gave himself a little bit of flex factor between 1 and 3 because he knows his schedule flexes. So he's not setting himself up for failure, which we're going to talk about later on. He's setting himself up to win. Another person here, the person who owns the studio, said that he's actually decided his result is he's locked in to complete his first product online by March 1st. What's great about that? It's very specific and it's got a deadline. So I said, how are you going to do it? He said, simple. I have 50 email responses I should have sent out a long time ago from people that already want this kind of product, and I'm going to send it out this week. Number 2, I'm going to send out 100 new emails to potential clients. Number 3, I'm going to take out some banner ads with at least 2 different publications. And then on March 5th, he'll have his second product online, and on April 1st, his third. So he's very specific. And by the way, is this something achievable now? See, it's really hard, even when you get yourself motivated, then unless you got something very specific to focus on, and you know the reasons, you know exactly what to do, you won't do it because you'll get caught up. That's why having this RPM planning process, this rapid planning method is so valuable. In the beginning, you're kind of weak at it, but after you do it for a while, you'll get really specific, you'll come up with great purposes, and you'll come up with great plans. It's like anything. It's a little muscle. Use it a little bit, it's going to grow. Another person here described the fact that they were unhappy. What disturbed them, we didn't talk about their example earlier, was being overweight and not being able to change it. They'd lost weight like 15 pounds a year ago. They gained it all back and they've not been able to get rid of it. And so this person said, now the result is really clear. I'm going to produce this result. I'm going to lose these 15 pounds. And most importantly, because I deserve to. I deserve that the energy, the feeling, the sexiness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They described all things that disturbed them to get the energy. But then this person focused on the result, specifically by when, and he had a powerful purpose. But what's interesting was what they learned when they did their action plan. This person said, you know what, they realized what was missing is in the past when they lost weight, they had a buddy. They had someone to share the experience with. And she became totally certain as she wrote down who her buddy would be that she could then do this. The second step was to pull out that darn Stairmaster and actually plug it in, a unique concept. But what does that do again? Convenience, clarity. So many things we don't do just because they're not convenient, because they're not immediate. What's immediate gets our attention. So she's taking that out, making that happen. And then she has a date by which she's going to make this all happen for each of these specific aspects. But I want to point something out here, and we're going to talk about this later on when I talk about really setting yourself up to win, which is one of our principles. But as long as it's being said here, I'll tell you this. Both of these people found something that they know will work because they modeled their successes from the past. You see, for this woman, she was able to lose the weight when she had a buddy, and I'll explain a little more why that worked later on, other than the obvious. The gentleman with the songwriting wrote a song that was on a TV show more than 20 years ago. But he stopped doing this, and he hasn't had that kind of result in his songwriting since then. So what you've really got to be able to look at is there are times in your life in which you've already succeeded. And you need to go back and model what you did and putting together your action plan, because then you'll have certainty it will work. One of the things I do in one of my seminars is I have people write down everything in their life that's here today that once was a dream, once was a goal. Things you may now take for granted, like, the person who's now in your life that you hoped at one point would go out with you, or the job you now take for granted that at one point you were wishing for, or the business that you now own and you're complaining about that one time in your life you would have prayed for. And then I have people write all these things down, and then I say, okay, now, circle one or two that really seemed impossible. Now write down how you made that happen. And what you begin to see is that there's a pattern, and the pattern is similar to what we talked about. Something disturbed them. They may not have been upset. Disturbed sometimes as they saw something that disturbed their status quo. Instead of being comfortable, they wanted more. It didn't have to be painful. Sometimes you're disturbed because you see something great and you want it. That's disturbing too. What's disturbing is you don't have it. That's a good thing. So someone said, I really want my own studio. I don't want to work for somebody else. This is what I want. This is the kind of life. I want to have it on my terms. But then what happens is you get disturbed, you get specific about what you want, you get enough reasons to follow through, you come up with a plan of action, you may do it consciously or unconsciously, and you get the psychology together, make it happen, you take massive action, you get results. But then we forget how we did this stuff. And then what happens is pretty soon there's a big gap between where we are and where we want to be, because it's natural that once you achieve something, you want more. So you want to make sure you get your plan here, create a little map. Hopefully these ideas have triggered you a bit. And remember, if you want to take some action on something, like you want to master your health, then get a coach. We got coaches here. Get the Living Health product. Look at something that will guide you step by step, day by day. The more specific the coaching, the more powerful you're going to be to follow through. And if there's someone physically there to follow up with you, then you can't make excuses because there's somebody else you're talking to other than yourself. It's so easy to talk yourself out of anything. But when you have a result there you got to make happen, it changes. So if you don't get a professional coach, in order to make your plan work, get a buddy, get some leverage. Make sure that someone else knows your plan so you can't just create a plan and not follow through. Okay? Okay? I know I'm a little nuts, but I really want you to get results, because guess what happens as soon as you come up with a plan? Opponents show up, don't they? Yes, there's 3 kinds of opponents. If you read any good story, you watch any good movie, as soon as the main protagonist has this desire and they get excited about it and they come up with a plan, then sure enough, opponents come to oppose it. That's what creates drama in your life. And there's 3 opponents. Number 1 is the external opponents. That's going to be all the other people. They're going to call you in the morning, or, by the way, if you want to do this in the evening, obviously you can do this evening, or at your lunch break. You can do this hour of power at whatever time works for your schedule or for your body. But the ideal time, again, is in the morning. But the point is, the minute you try to do this, the opponents show up. The phone starts ringing first thing in the morning. There's all these other projects, all these other demands that all want your time and attention instead of giving it to yourself. And when you come up with a plan, the same thing happens. All kinds of resistance will show up. And if it's not from the external opponents, it'll be from the intimate opponents, the people close to you who love you dearly, but they don't understand. You got to have time for yourself. Your kids want this and want that, but if you don't take time for yourself, there's not as much of you to give them, is there? Same thing for your spouse. The people around you, your friends who don't understand why you can't talk to them right now. Take those friends on a run with you, on a walk with you. Get them to do the hour of power. I love to do this with my lady. It's one of the great things we share together. We do it side by side. And then after end, we share our celebration. But also there's the internal opponent. The parts inside of you that are conflicted, saying, yeah, I really want to do this, but I also want to do that. You've got to put the opponents at bay. And the only way to do that is discover what are the beliefs, which is going to be our next step. What are the beliefs that are conflicting you? What are the beliefs that are stopping you? See, whenever you're upset about something, it's because of the beliefs you have. Beliefs control behavior. Whatever you do it because of your beliefs. And you may not know what those beliefs are because often they're unconscious. So we're going to discover the beliefs that may be holding you back and the beliefs that will move you forward. But I have to say this to you. You've been extraordinary. You've listened to me babble and dump the whole load on you at an incredibly intense pace. Something that most people go through a seminar for, you've been doing in this results workshop. So I want to give you a chance to have a victory right now if you want to limit your time today. So if you want to stop now just for today and start tomorrow with beliefs, you're welcome to do so. But let's remind you, here's what you've done today. You've gotten clear. You've got to get disturbed. You can't accept things. You can't make it, it's okay. You got to say, never again. This is done. Not within a minute, not within a day. This is changing. Step 2, you got to make a decision about what you do want. You don't want to just be upset. You want to be sure what you're after. Something that'll get you to stay up late, get up early, and really go for it. Something that drives you. And then thirdly, you got to come up with your initial plan, that massive action plan. We don't get excited. We don't change things by a little action here or there or trying something. We do it by just going full force at something and taking some massive action right now. So today, if you want to, take some action right now. Review what you've done in your journal. Take an action today. Turn the CD off. Or if you're one of those people that just can't stop, that wants to complete this workshop right now, that's as insane and crazy as I am, then continue to listen to this CD, and we'll go to step number 4. And that is, you've got to change your limiting beliefs. First of all, what is a belief? We think of a belief as a thing when a belief is really a feeling. What a belief is a feeling of absolute certainty about what something means. If you believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that if I invite you to walk across fire, you're going to burn, then there's no way you're going to get yourself to do it. But if you're familiar with my Unleash the Power Within weekends, then you know for a fact that we've had literally 750,000 people from every age, from 7 years old to 87-year-olds that have crossed this fire. If the only thing stopping us is a belief. See, if you don't believe you can ever get yourself at 6 a.m., you're never going to. If you believe you have to have 8 or 9 hours sleep, you're going to make sure you get it because you don't believe you'll function without it. As you believe, so is it done unto you. Sound familiar? Whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. Because when you feel certain about something, you're going to find it. You're going to make it happen. If you're certain that you can't succeed, you're going to look for all the reasons why you shouldn't even start, because who wants to fail? Beliefs control our behavior. Now, sometimes the belief is unconscious. Like, you've been taught your whole life, look before you leap. But you're also taught he who hesitates is lost. Figure that one out. Very often we have conflicting beliefs, but I can tell you this, whatever you're feeling and whatever you're doing is usually based on a belief, and you may not be conscious of it. If you're starting to feel really angry or really frustrated or really sad, I'll give you a little question to ask yourself, and I'll probably talk about this a couple of times, and that question's simply this. What would I have to believe to feel this way? What would I have to believe in order to feel this way? See, for me to be angry about this, I have to believe that this person has control of me and I can do nothing about it. Well, when you start to realize what you'd have to believe to feel a certain way, you start to say, wait a second, I can do something about it. That isn't true. And it breaks the hypnosis that the belief has. It takes away the certainty that you're at the effect of things and gives you the opportunity to take control. Does that make sense? The same thing can happen if you're feeling really sad. Why am I feeling sad? Well, in order to feel sad right now, what would I have to believe? I'd have to believe that nothing can ever get better, that I'm overwhelmed and I can't change anything, that, I'm at the effect of it all. But you know what? We all know that's BS. Belief systems, right? But see, when we tell ourselves something over and over and over again with enough emotional intensity, we start believing it. It becomes an incantation. Most of our beliefs are things that we heard or saw, we felt a lot of emotion about, and then we repeated it to ourselves again and again unconsciously or consciously until we felt certain. And certainty is such a great asset when you get yourself certain about what you can achieve, what you can do, what you can change, what you can make happen, who you can love, what you can connect with, what you can create. But when you're certain about your limitations, you got a real challenge. And you know what? Most people know more about their limitations than their assets. Do you follow how important this is? Psychology is everything. You got to get disturbed. You got to get clear on making yourself a decision about what you're committed to. What's that result and why? You got to get a plan, a real plan, and you got to schedule that plan. And you got to make sure you got a set of beliefs in place that you've decided to live by that will get you to follow through on a constant and consistent basis. Let me tell you what's great. As soon as you start to get any results at all, you'll get momentum, and with that momentum, you'll develop new beliefs. So if you can just get yourself in gear, you're going to get the kind of results you want. So here's what I want you to do now. I want you to write down, in the past, what are all the beliefs you've had that have kept you from following through on this goal? So if you said, well, I've been wanting to write songs forever and I haven't done it, now be honest with yourself. In order to not follow through, what did I have to say to myself? What did I have to rationalize? What were my beliefs? Well, I don't have time for this. You've said some of them before, but I want you to write down the specific beliefs and then write down what are the beliefs you're going to live by now that will get you to follow through. So if your old thing is workouts equal pain, and the new one is not working out is the ultimate pain because being disappointed with myself is the worst emotion on earth. Plus working out, second belief, is easy and fun because I can do it, I can schedule it, and if I schedule it and I do it every day, it'll get easier. Every day I'll enjoy it more. Write down first the beliefs that kept you from taking action and write down now the beliefs that will empower you. Come up with at least 3 beliefs that used to limit you, ideally 5 or 6, and at least 4 beliefs, ideally 5, 6, or 7, that are new beliefs that'll get you to follow through on your new plan. Go for it now. Please take the time for this. This is very important. Okay. I really hope, because I can't see you in this moment, that you're really taking this seriously and taking the time to do it. And if you're driving and you feel like you really couldn't pull over, I want you to still do this in your head. So assuming you did it, let's go through this for a second. Here are a couple examples from people around me here. One of the people here, the person who was having difficulty losing weight, the young lady said that she realized her limiting belief was, if I'm successful, people might not like me. Now, we all need to feel loved. And I said, where'd that come from? She said, well, when I was growing up, and she said, I got around the successful girls, the girls that were popular. She said, when they realized I was really smart, they classified me as a nerd because I was successful in school and they wouldn't spend time with me. And so she said, I started believing that if you're really too smart or you're too beautiful, then people might not like you. And I said, what's your new belief? She said, people won't like me unless I love myself. Isn't that fantastic? Because it's the truth. Then her second belief was, other things are more important than working out. And then her new belief is, nothing is more important than making sure that every day I'm making myself more healthy and more vital. The third belief she had that kept her from taking action was, well, it's not that bad. And her new belief is, it's terrible. Now listen to the language she used here, because this is why she's really motivated to change. She didn't say, oh, it really isn't very good. She said, it's terrible. Every pound I gain is eroding who I am as a woman. So that kind of belief system, that new belief, will move her to action. Do you follow? I mean, so few people ever allow themselves to be disturbed long enough to do anything about it. Man, they get disturbed, they instantly want to get rid of that pain. Let's do something right now instantaneously to feel good so I don't have any drive or motivation. You don't want to kill that. Then the few people that keep that usually just stay there in the pain and don't do anything, and they beat themselves up. Oh yeah, let me tell you what else I've screwed up on. As opposed to those that say, okay, this is not good enough. Not another day, not another minute. I am changing this now. And then in that mode, they then get focused on the result. They don't focus on the past. They focus on the future they're going to create now. And they focus on why, so they find that drive. So few people do that. It's a joke. That's why so few people ever achieve. And the few that might do something like that rarely come up with a real plan. And then even if you get to that level, here's why most people never get any results, because then their old beliefs take over and wipe out the plan. Do you understand why we've taken the time to do this now? It's so important. Now, by the way, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to screw up. Things are going to get off target at times. But if you do these steps, you're going to have so much momentum moving you forward that the few challenges you bump into will not be enough to stop you from getting what you're after. Especially if you do the next step. And that's step number 5. Set the game up to win. Now, what does that mean? You got to set yourself up to win. So many people, when they build their plan, when they organize things, they make it so rigid, so tight, so intense that there's no possibility of you feeling like a success. If you're going to win, you got to be able to reward yourself for doing things approximately right in the beginning. Here's what I mean. If a child is going to actually learn something, and that's what we're doing when we're creating change, right? We're learning how to do things differently. We're learning how to get ourselves to write those songs. We're learning how to get ourselves to work out consistently. We're learning how to take the time for ourselves or create those products. We're relearning. We're learning something. So when you go to learn something, you don't usually do it perfectly the first time. And if you have to do it perfect or you beat yourself up, your brain's going to go, why even try? I don't want to feel like a failure. So you got to set up the game so you can win. Now, the secret then is when you create a plan to do something is do everything you can to make it so it's enjoyable along the way. I call it scoring it. You know, if you think about it, if you go to a movie and there's no music, it's not the same movie. You can go to a movie that's, okay, with a great music, it's like it lifts your emotion, it moves you. So for example, in all my seminars, I use music at various points. I have people move. I do things. I use humor. I use jokes. I put things on the screen. Anything I can to score it, to add that additional emotional intensity that makes the process enjoyable, not just the outcome. Does that make sense? Think of it this way. If you're familiar with my work, I teach that all human beings are driven by 6 needs. One of those needs is the need for certainty. We have to be certain we can be comfortable. If you're not certain that you can be comfortable, if you're not certain the ceiling above you is going to stay up, you can't hear anything anybody says. Certainty is a survival instinct. We got to feel that we can avoid pain, we can have some pleasure. So if you're going to work out as an example, you got to make sure you train that trainer to say, listen, in the beginning, your goal is not to kill me. In the beginning, your goal is to get me to enjoy this and to have my body be certain that I can do this successfully day after day. So I know you got to stretch me, but let's do some things that I'm comfortable with initially and get some momentum and build on that success. You know, if you're going to be successful in anything, the second need we have is for uncertainty, which is a code word for variety. God has a sense of humor. He wants us to be certain and uncertain simultaneously. He just wants to twist our brain. And if we are able to take this brain and balance it out, we have tremendous power. When I go to exercise, to me, it was boring to run in the beginning. Now I like it. But in the beginning, I hated it, and there are times when I love it. When I love it is when I add something to it. And what I add to it is incantations, or I add music. because I love music, or I'd run with a friend, or I'd do it in an environment that's fun, or I do something different every day, a different kind of workout, a different kind of movement, a different kind of exercise. Anything that you can do to add variety is going to make you enjoy the process, and now you're going to want to do it as opposed to having to do it. That's part of how you set the game up to win. That's how you get the edge in life. You get the edge by creating enjoyment in the process, not just enjoyment someday when it's all done. So we all have a need for connection, for love. And if you can do something with someone you love, it's just like the young lady was saying. She said she wants to lose weight. Well, she needs a buddy. The buddy will add a sense of connection. The buddy will add variety to the workout. It won't be boring. Another need we all have is a need for significance, to feel like what we're doing matters. Another need we have is to grow. So if you measure your progress, you'll be excited about it. If you only measure it one way, though, like how many pounds you lose, forget it. So maybe what you do is you make a chart of emotions, and you have, bored, tired, angry, frustrated, overwhelmed, and then you go to the other side and you go, calm, comfortable, happy, excited, euphoric, passionate. And maybe you put a little thing at the bottom, day 1 through 31. And then you just chart 2 or 3 times a day. You write down the time of the day, and right, here's where I am. And you mark it, and you chart. As you work out, what happens to your emotions? As you do this morning ritual I told you about, this hour of power, chart where you are after you've worked out. Chart where you are when you don't work out. It'll be real obvious. You'll see you're way up at the top in the peak levels of life and the peak emotions, right? The upper levels whenever you do these things to your body, and you'll feel the lower levels when you're not. Measure more than just weight loss. Measure anything that can give you growth. I mean, we all have that need to feel we've grown. So the more you measure things, the more you reinforce it, the better you feel. And finally, contribution. If you can find a way that by working out you're contributing, most of us will do more for others we care about than we'll ever do for ourselves. So there's so many ways to meet your needs. You want now to say, whatever the tasks are at hand, what do I need to do so that I enjoy the process? What can I do to score it? If it's working out, can I add music? Can I work out with a buddy? Can I pray while I'm doing this? Can I do incantations while I'm doing this? What can I do so I'm comfortable? So what can I do so I have different kinds of workouts, so I have variety? What can I do to meet some of these needs so I enjoy the process? Whatever it is. And if it's not working out, if it's building a new project, or if it's losing the weight, or whether it's writing the songs, whatever it is, I want you right now, just come up with 2 or 3 ideas. That's all. You can add this later, that can help you look forward to doing the things that will be necessary in order to achieve your goal. In order to achieve the result you want, what are some things you can do while you're doing it that you can focus on, pay attention to, notice, appreciate, or enjoy that'll enhance the experience? Just take a minute to do this. Write down 2 or 3 things. Turn off that CD and come right back to me. Bye. Okay, so what did you do to juice it up for you? I can tell you the areas people tend to do is they tend to think about things or focus on things they weren't focusing on before. Like one of my friends here was saying that, he realizes that he feels so happy. He feels what he called an abiding exhilaration when he's worked out. He said, it's like joy is always in the background of my life. And he said, I miss it. And he said he feels connected to God, connected to his creator when he writes songs. For the young lady who wanted to lose weight, she loves to read trashy novels, but never has such time. So she said, now I can get on a Stairmaster if I can read myself a good trashy novel while it's happening, then I'll have no pain. I'll be involved in the whole story. That's what'll make it work. She said the other thing is she loves locations. She loves outdoors. She loves, cross-country type environments, or running the stairs that are by a beach. She said, or some really intense terrain. She loves both the view and the difference in the terrain, the variety and the challenge of that makes it significant for her. So those are some things that she added to her list. So all of us can juice things up. The more we juice it up, the more we set up the game to win. Here's the last 2 real quick. Step number 6, take massive action. And when do you do it? Well, when would now be a good time? Right? You don't want to wait now. So often my kids will say something like, we ought to do X. And I'll look at them and say, when would now be a good time to do that? And they look at me, they get a little quizzical look on their face, and they start to smile, and they get the message. Right? Now is the time. There is no time but now. The power is in now. The power is not in the future. The power is not in tomorrow. The power is in this moment in which you act. And I've already said the things I'd say under this principle, but I'll just remind you, knowing that repetition is the mother of skill. Never, ever, ever, ever leave the sight of setting a goal without doing something towards its attainment. And the more massive the action, the more committed you are. So again, instead of saying, well, I need to change my diet, go home and tear everything out of the house and throw it down that toilet, like I said. Go do something crazy. Go do something outrageous. Do something you would never normally do that will commit you to following through. Burn the bridges behind you so you have to move forward. This has power. Nothing great happens by having little goals with little action. You got to have big goals. That's what inspires you, and big action that makes it possible. And I'll tell you, massive action doesn't mean it has to be a lot of work. I'll tell you some massive action. One of the easiest things you could do that would get you on target for your goal that requires you no money, all it requires is you making a decision and taking action immediately. Incantations. When you state a phrase over and over again out loud using your entire body in the emotional state you want to feel, you literally condition your mind and body to experience it. So for example, if you want to get your body in shape and you start to create a phrase, it doesn't even have to sound good. I'm a lean, mean, fighting machine. I'm a lean, mean, fighting machine. Or, I'm a fit, lean, mean, fighting machine. I don't know what you want to say. Or every day in every way, I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day in every way, I'm feeling happier and happier. And you say that for 45 minutes while you walk or jog or run. You talk about massive action. It's called massive conditioning. You can't just get rid of a negative belief. You got to replace it. You could just incant your new beliefs, the beliefs that you wrote down earlier. You could just say them again and again and change the emphasis. So change the state. Say it with pride. Say it with strength. Say it with a smile on your face. Say it with laughter in your heart. Say it as if God was guiding you. By changing the emotion, you change the impact that you feel inside your body. And you literally begin to condition yourself for more action. Again, you get momentum. Massive action creates momentum. Massive action is the cure-all. Massive action doesn't mean you have to do 5,000 things. It means do something. And if it's something big and you go after it and you make progress of any sort, it's going to reinforce you because you're going to see that the big problem is not as big as you thought in your head. Things are always bigger in your head than they really are. Tackle it. Make it real. Do it right now. So if I said to you right now, there's one action you're going to take, a small, simple action and a big action that's going to get you going. Something you could do like a quick phone call, email, and then something that required time, energy, or money, or a big effort. You're going to go out and you're going to take that car of yours and you're going to blow it up so no one has to drive it. So you've been embarrassed by it. Your kids are embarrassed. You're going to commit yourself. I don't know. What's a big action? What's a little action? Turn off this program just for a second and write down those two things. Go. This is a pretty cool process, isn't it? You know why? Because this is really a results workshop. This is how you get results. No more talk, no more just getting inspired. Let's get down to it and let's make it fun. Now, what were your actions? What did you come up with? Did you come up with a little one and a big one? I'll give you some examples from people here. For John, our producer here, who wanted to make sure he got his songs going and started working out, he said 2 simple actions immediate. Number 1, the minute he goes home, he's going to grab the clipboard and he's going to put it right on his pillow. So he can't miss it, and it's just an absolute commitment. This is going to be so easy, but it'll make it happen. And he said the second thing, which is a big thing for him because he hasn't worked out in a while, is he's going to put on his gear instantly with no delay, go right in there and get busy. Those 2 things will get him momentum. Once he gets in there, he'll feel good. The hardest part of working out is getting in the gym. Once you start working out, you get momentum. It's just like anything else, and it feeds you because it feels good to move, right? Next, the young lady that wanted to lose that weight. She said the first thing she's going to do is she's going to call her friend Shannon, and she's going to schedule this Saturday to run those big stairs by the beach. Second, she's going to get rid of what she calls her big girl clothes, which is the stuff she hangs on to because she's overweight during the summer. And she says, I'm going to give it away now so that by summer, when summer comes, I have nothing else to be wearing, so I have to be thin. Great massive action. Fabulous. And for my friend here who's the engineer, he's going to immediately schedule his weekly meetings with his design team down in the gas lamp district because he said it's so motivating for an artist to be there. And he said, that'll be so cool. It'll stimulate us. We'll be going. And then the big one is, he said, as soon as the first product's done, I'm going to take my team to the Somo district in San Francisco. That's south of Market for those not from the Frisco area, or as they call it, the city. If you call it Frisco, they know you're not from the area. But the point is, he's going to take his whole team up there so they'll be inspired and they'll be rewarded and everybody's got something to look forward to. So this is the kind of thing that gets momentum going. So here's the final step. Step number 7, use the 7th power. You go, step 7, 7th power? Is this designed to confuse me? Yes, it's designed to sound mysterious because we're coming to the end of the workshop and you have to add a little zest in here because, while we've got an action plan here, it's pretty basic. So you have to make it sound really special, the 7th power. But my 7th power is this. Everybody in life has standards for themselves, but we all have certain needs. And one of those needs we talked about earlier is the need for love and connection. One of those needs is the need to feel like we're significant or important to the people around us. And the people that have the power to make us feel loved or unloved, the people we give that power to are the people we call our peers. Now, for some people, the peers are their family. For some people, the peers are their friends at home. For some people, they have their peers at work. But anybody who you care how they feel about you has the power to influence the way you think to some extent. Now, some people are completely influenced by their peers, and some people tend to lead their peers. But everyone is influenced to some extent. And the reason is because we all want this love and connection. So when I say that most people's lives are a direct reflection of the expectations of their peer group, here's what that means. If you have a peer group of people who you care how they feel about you, and they have a lower expectation for what they want for their body, for example. Let's say they're comfortable with being overweight. Then if you have a higher standard, it's going to bother you to see that they're overweight. But because they're your friends, you don't want to make them wrong all the time, and that would feel terrible. You love them. Plus, they don't want to feel like they're not significant either. So they're not going to try and pull you down because they don't love you. They're going to go, hey, it's just one piece of chocolate. Come on, it's just one more bite. Come on. Oh, stop being so rigid. And all they're doing is trying to make sure they don't lose you. Because everybody senses that if you have a higher standard, that they're not as important. If you have a higher standard, they feel less significant. If you have a higher standard, you might not feel as connected. So people become vested very often in bringing you to a lower standard of where they are. Now, the opposite happens. If you join a group of people that have a higher standard than you have for your life, just to stay in that peer group, you have to raise your standards, don't you? To be a Marine, you got to raise your standards. To be in the airborne, you got to raise your standards. Right? If you're going to play tennis and you're playing against people much better than you are, you're going to get better because you have to, just to stay in rapport, just to stay in the game, just for them to want to visit with you. Because otherwise they're going to get bored. And that's true of emotions, that's true of spirit, that's true of economic success, that's true of how much negativity you're willing to put out or not. Whoever you're around, here's the simple thought. Whoever you spend time with is who you become. If you lie down with dogs, you come up with fleas. It's an old phrase. It's another one of those cliches, but it is so true. Because who you spend time with is who you become, because eventually, if you got higher standards, one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to get them to raise their standards and you're going to lead them to a new level, or you're going to get frustrated, burnout, tired, or going to comply with their standards sooner or later out of your need for love. So in life, here's what you got to do. A lot of people say, yeah, but my peer group's my family. Oh, no. Here's what you got to do. Love your family, pick your peer group, right? Because a lot of family members are not the right people to be influencing how you feel because a lot of them have their own stuff. So you got to pick your peer group and love your family because you got to love your family whether they're nice or not. That's just about being a human being, right? So when I say to tap into the seventh power, it's the power of environment. It's the power of picking a peer group that has a higher standard. So if you want to make sure this plan you follow through on really occurs, you got to get somebody else who's already living that way. If you pick a buddy who's also struggling to work out, the two of you will find yourself at Starbucks instead of at the stairs. You can't let that happen. Find somebody who's already succeeding. That's why hiring a coach is so valuable, because you know they can't cop out. That's their job, and you know they live it every day. You got to get around people with a higher standard. Now, if you get that person and you take your friend with you, and the two of you have someone who's a higher standard, and you both care how they feel, or you've hired them so you have to follow through, then you got a different game, don't you? Then things are going to actually occur. That's why I so believe in coaching. I mean, my favorite thing is to make sure that when somebody has an immersion program like this, there's someone to walk you through making sure you take action. So I really encourage you to call our company and get yourself a coach. Start out for 90 days. At the end of 90 days, if you're not thrilled, you can end it. But you won't. You'll find these coaches will make a difference in your life long term. Because what coaches are people that have a higher standard and they have an entire focus to make sure you follow through, and you can't manipulate them. Because while they care about you, they care enough to not let you lie to yourself, not distort things. And they'll help you get disturbed if you're not. And they'll do it in a way that's elegant and respectful. They'll help you make these decisions. They basically get you to do these 7 steps on a regular basis instead of you hoping that it works out. So that's why coaching's so valuable. But you got to create an environment where you are reinforced for doing what it is you're really committed to. You've got to make that happen if you're going to succeed. And by the way, pick an environment that also reinforces you, like we talked about earlier, for the small wins. You got to have somebody that not only will challenge you, but you got to make sure you get rewarded. So if they don't do it for yourself. Like if you're going to learn to play the game of golf, for example, it can be a bit overwhelming unless you focus when you go out and play, not on all the shots you missed, but on the ones you made. If you go out and say, okay, I scored 138 today, and these guys, they hit a 62. This is a bit depressing. It seems overwhelming. So what you got to do is instead, you got to keep track on every hole. You did 2 great putts. You had a great drive. You write down those and you forget the stuff that doesn't matter, because if you keep focusing on the failure, you never get the success. Remember, you can only build on success. And if you got a great peer group, they're going to challenge you, but they also should be able to reinforce you for your progress, not somebody who is so in need of significance themselves that they can't acknowledge you as well. It's an important point to remember. And also remember this, you're going to get off track. You're going to screw up. The secret is not do you fall down. The secret is, do you sit there on the ground and cry and complain and talk about how you always do this and you sabotage yourself and tell a story, or do you get your butt back up immediately and start running? And the other thing is, don't make this more complex than it needs to be. I was talking to this woman the other day, and she was majorly overweight, and she was saying, yes, well, I'm going to put my plan together. When I get back home, I'm going to go do research on the very best trainer possible and, make sure that they have all the best distinctions and tools. And, within 2 weeks, I'll get started. I said, ma'am, with all due respect, you're so overweight, you don't need a sculpting genius. You need a big guy behind you to yell, run! Right? That's what you need. You don't need some massive detailed plan. You need some momentum here. Don't be telling yourself this big story. Just go do it, because that's what this is all about. In the end, it's about doing it. It's about living it. It's about experiencing it. It's about not settling. Figure out who you're going to do that with, though. Who are you going to do it with, or who are you going to share the victory with, or who are you going to tell your commitment to? Make sure you decide that right now. Who will you share this experience with? Who will you commit to? Who will hold you to that standard for real and not let you off the hook? Who will be leading you by example and you will not want to lose face with, so you will follow through even when it's uncomfortable and it's uneasy, and therefore you'll achieve the experience called the real you, where your life reflects a person who lives at the edge. And I don't mean the edge of challenge. I mean the edge that reflects someone who is sharp, someone who can make anything they think about happen in their life, someone who knows that it's all about enjoying your life and producing the results. It's not about talking about the story about why it didn't happen, it can't happen now, and all the reasons. Give up the story, go for the results. Take this RPM plan you've created and turn it into reality, and start to experience the pride that comes when you're one of those people that doesn't have to explain why they aren't achieving, but who gets to share the joy of what you've accomplished, and you can share with other people how you did it, because you're conscious in your process. See, that's a life that's fun. That's a life at the edge. That's a life that's extraordinary. So I hope this results workshop has moved you forward. And if you didn't do some of the steps, go back and do them. And if you got to listen to this 10 times to get yourself to do it, do it. But get yourself to take the action. And once you do this, now we can start with this as the foundation. Anything else we teach, you can follow through. You know why? Now you've got a system every day to look at this, a system to feel the gratitude and fill back up with the emotions that'll move you forward, a system to put your body in a peak state so you feel that sense of will, a system that every morning will start your life where you feel successful because you know you've already achieved first thing in the morning, a system that'll get you connected and loving yourself, a system that'll get you focused on what you want and why you want it and the actions to make it work, and all that happens within an hour. And now you got a system here that if you're not following through, you can go through these 7 steps, you can kick yourself in the butt, tell yourself the truth, get the plan, make it happen, and make it fun. Now, today, I want you to go do those 2 things you wrote down you're going to do. Do them right away and really acknowledge yourself. And remember, don't let this be the end. If this is just the edge you're listening to, let's continue this process so we cover the specifics, the plan, and the follow-through in each area of your life that matters. Your body and your energy, your emotions, your relationships, your finances, that sense of purpose, the level of joy in your life. Let's continue the immersion together. And if you're going to do that, call me right now and let me continue to be your coach. You know the number, 1-800, remember, 898-TONY, T-O-N-Y, 1-800-898, it's Tony, 8669, or go to the web at tonyrobbins.com. Listen, I just want to let you know it's been my privilege to be your coach. And I want to thank you for taking this journey with me. And I look forward to being with you again tomorrow. Till then, God bless you. And hey, it's Tony. Listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this program. So many people complain about they want to change their life, but they don't do anything about it. Or they pick up a book or an audio and they don't follow through. So the fact that you're listening here at the end says to me that you're the real thing and you're a brother or sister on the path. But I also know that, and you do too, that listening is the first step. Now you got to get yourself to actually take action and follow through. You got to take not just action, but massive action. Otherwise, you'll get an improvement in your life. But my guess is you don't want just an improvement. You want an extraordinary life on your terms, the level of life that you deserve and that you desire. So in order to help you with that, I don't want this to be the end. I want you to keep your momentum going. So take a moment right now, if you will, and go to my site at tonyrobbins.com/more. And I've prepared there for you a set of breakthrough tools at no additional charge for you that you can use to move yourself forward to the next step. So go there now, tonyrobbins.com/more. And I look forward to crossing paths with you, maybe at an event, maybe somewhere in the world, and hearing about how this work has touched you. Look forward to meeting you. Till then, live strong and live with passion.